hours.
Yeah, man, it's been busy. Started very early this morning, 7 a.m., first official time that prospects can begin signing, unless, Bill, you live in Australia. I saw a prospect. For some reason, a lot of specialists come out of Australia, and they're obviously in a different time zone, so it kind of matches up. Gamecocks do not, by the way, have any prospects from
That's a
Australia in this
shame. That's
class.
a good,
It
I,
is.
an underrated recruiting area, from my understanding, and certainly a recruiting trip worth making occasionally.
I hope to make that trip myself one day. But no, there's already been, obviously several prospects in. We saw yesterday some big news. Carolina got in advance of the early signing day when two Oklahoma transfers and Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner, they signed something different than the NLI that you see high school and junior college prospects sign today. They signed their financial aid agreements. And so they are officially on board. They are part of the class, part of the Gamecock family officially. And then today, rolling throughout the day with a bunch of other signings. I know we were talking off air before we came in, guys, that South Carolina did lose someone off the commitment list, Taishan Wanamaker, who Carolina had honestly pulled a surprise for at the time of his commitment, flips a few days after committing to the Gamecocks to Maryland. But several other guys that were already on the commitment list are officially on board and signed this morning.
Let's not that we're going to dwell on the negative. There's a lot of great things to be happy about if you're a South Carolina fan today. Two guys, maybe the biggest name, will, as you just mentioned, will not be part necessarily of the recruiting class. I'm using air quotes here. It's a radio program, so you didn't see that. But Spencer Rattler, certainly a big part of the recruiting class, and that will be something that South Carolina will highlight throughout the day. You mentioned the financial aid agreement. So there's a lot of things, a lot of reasons to be very excited if you're a South Carolina fan. But let's start with what is the news of the day. This is I shouldn't say a weird situation. The three of us, I was kind of joking, Chris, Wes, I've known you guys for I think 10 years now, 11 years, 12 years, somewhere in that. We've done recruiting together. We've traveled together. We've seen a lot of crazy stuff.
We're getting up there, is what you're
We're
saying.
getting in there. Yeah, I'm the gray beard of the group. Chris has got, what are you, 2 kids now? Is that right?
Two kids, more gray hair than either of y'all.
Well, I don't
Maybe
know.
not a gray beard.
The beard, yeah. Wes is no kids over here. He looks great. He's no stress at all. His stress comes from recruiting, but you're right. We're getting up there, but this is a situation that Barham very quiet throughout recruiting. It was tough for you guys to get interviews. It was really tough to continuously track information. You knew Penn State was in the driver's seat at one point. Maybe Oklahoma jumped into the driver's seat late. Maryland certainly was always there. And then he commits to South Carolina. And I think it was a surprise because you guys got some intel late that it was going to be Maryland. He surprised everybody. And then, unfortunately, this morning for South Carolina, it does end up being Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't really consider it to be a huge surprise when you look at how it played out on Saturday. And, I think, man, it was really one of the stranger days that I've ever maybe followed a recruitment. Going into Saturday, South Carolina, I would say, was cautiously optimistic with Taishan Wanamaker. And it was a situation, though, it wasn't really, Bill, that we didn't get many interviews. We didn't get any interviews with the kid. Like, he literally just did not give interviews, didn't really kind of buy into the recruiting process as far as the way most guys do. And so you're kind of in the dark. And from a coverage standpoint, I hate it when, you're going into a recruitment trying to cover it and you're completely in the dark. That was the case on Saturday. South Carolina, again, felt cautiously optimistic. Then you go into Saturday, and by everything I was told, I believe he told Maryland that he was coming on Saturday. I believe that South Carolina thought that he was going to Maryland on Saturday. And then at some point last second, he even pushed the announcement back an hour. At some point, he announces he decides to announce for South Carolina. This is something we had been tracking. You never really know, and you don't really, again, you don't harp on it going in, because then, you don't want to be like starting a fire with the fan base if there's nothing there necessarily. But this was certainly something we were keeping an eye on. And then, of course, something South Carolina, I'm sure, was keeping an eye on. And he, of course, signs with Maryland this morning. And so not really a surprise. Certainly a guy South Carolina would have loved to have in the class. But but you've never seen it all in recruiting. Generally, if somebody verbally commits this close to signing day, that means they're fairly locked in, but obviously that was not the case here.
803-404-6100. Again, if you want to weigh in on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, we'll try and get to some phone calls throughout the day. But again, a lot for us to kind of cover in the next several hours. South Carolina sits. What is the official count, fellas? Is it 21 commitments as of this time? 2 commitments last night, 2 local commitments that we'll get into. Xavier Short and DeQuandre DQ Smith from Spring Valley High School. So where do we sit with actual numbers at this time as I'm watching you two try and follow very intently along? Where do we stand here?
Yeah, 21 right
Yep.
now. Not counting, of course, the 2 transfers
Okay.
that are coming in, of course, with Rattler and Stogner.
We're going to have to figure out hand signals for if there's breaking information where you guys tell me to just keep talking while you guys gather what we can do. A lot will happen over the next 3 hours. Certainly, let's get into here just for a second. The very first guy to get into this class this morning with his national letter of intent, Braden Davis, quarterback, Delaware. And certainly with Davis, I've been saying for a while, I think you guys have been saying too, that in this situation, you knew South Carolina has to continue to upgrade the quarterback position. They do go out and get Spencer Rattler. That was huge. He'll be the guy. But Braden Davis, certainly a guy that will now be expected to come in and develop, Chris, over the next few years. And is he an early enrollee?
Yeah, he is projected to be an early enrollee. Like you said, Bill, first guy in, which was not surprising. I think there are probably a couple candidates to be first guy in this morning. I was looking at Ryan Brubaker, who had told me that he was going to sign as early as possible. I think he had a ceremony that kind of moved that timeline back just a little bit. But Davis, quarterback recruiting has been fascinating for South Carolina this year, and that was before Spencer Rattler, kind of joined the chat, so to speak. We knew South Carolina, of course, under the circumstances, was going to go after a portal quarterback, but it was paramount that they signed a guy from the high school ranks in 2022. So there were a few different offers that went out on that front, and Davis ended up being one of them. And he was always, Bill, I think, someone that we looked at and said, is this a guy that South Carolina could eventually move on? He had ties to Marshawn Lloyd. He's from Delaware, played one high school football season actually in the state of Florida before moving back to Delaware. But this is a kid who's got legitimate size. He's 6'5", 6'6". He has a frame that can put on more weight. If you talk to coaches at his high school at Middletown, Delaware, they talk a lot about his ability to run and how they actually pushed him to even run more as a senior. And then from a physical standpoint, he does, like you said, have some development to do for sure. But you look at the size, the athleticism, and he does have, arm talent. Wes and I saw him throw in camp this summer in Columbia. And I think speaking for myself, I think that he, impressed me more than I even anticipated in that setting.
Again, this is the guy. You're right. South Carolina went through a couple different options. Tanner Bailey was a guy that a lot of people thought. Have we seen where Tanner may end up now at this point? He was committed to Oregon. Mario Cristobal leaves and goes to Miami. I have no reason for me necessarily to follow it. Really, no reason for you guys to follow it as well. But that was a guy early on. Drew, is it Allure? Allure was, I think he's going to Penn State. Was another guy.
Yep.
Marcus Satterfield and Shane Beamer kind of worked through a couple different options, and it ends up being Braden Davis. But certainly you look back at the quarterback recruiting and where things kind of ended up there. I do think they've got developmental prospect. And I think that's big, Chris, when we talk about quarterbacks, because, man, we've done the numbers. The quarterback situation for South Carolina since 2015, since Dylan Thompson left, is absolutely insane. I believe it is roughly 11 starting quarterbacks, which is insane when you think about, I might be wrong on that. You got Connor Mitch, you got Perry Worth, you got Brandon McElwain, you got Jake Bentley, you got a Scarnecchia appearance, you got Helinski, you got Doty, you got Colin Hill, you've got Zeb Noland. I'm at 9. Toss in a Jason Brown, so 10. I was one
Lorenzo
off.
Nunez.
And a Nunez, thank you.
Yep.
So 11.
You're right.
11 since 2015. And I believe 6 of those have been true freshmen when you do McElwain, Bentley, Nunez is in that group. Luke Doty has started as a freshman. you get the point. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's two others. There's two. I can promise. I think we've done this enough times. South Carolina's got to let some guys develop a little bit. That's why that's why I really liked Colton Gothy this year, having time to develop and not throwing him out into the wolves.
Yeah, no doubt. And the interesting thing also, Bill, about those stats you've thrown out is, like, if you go back and you pull how many 4-star quarterbacks South Carolina signed, because DeCarrion Joyner is not a guy that started. He's not in that 11 that you mentioned, but he signed with South Carolina as a 4-star quarterback. Connor Mitch, 4-star quarterback. Lorenzo Nunez. We're not going to go through that whole list. We don't need to, but they've had a lot of talent. So what has it been? Well, some guys have been misses. Some guys, the circumstances weren't great, whether it was too early, whether there wasn't enough around them, coaching, whatever it may have been, whatever you attribute it to. That's a whole nother show probably on the quarterback situation. But there's no doubt that coming into this year, quarterback was a question for different reasons. And then we saw it become even more of a question because of injuries and all sorts of factors there. Going into next year, again, another question. You don't have Zeb Nolan. You could return everybody else in that room, Connor Jordan, the walk-on, enter the transfer portal. But we were going into next season, of course, after the bowl, with the same sort of questions. What does it look like at quarterback? And so I think, bearing that in mind, that's why South Carolina did go in the portal, looked at some different options there, and all the roads eventually converged on Spencer Rattler, which is a great get. But it was still important, no matter who they got in the portal, to get a guy in this class. And so you're right. This allows them to bring Davis in, have him learn, have him develop, because he does need some time to develop. But this is a great kid with some leadership qualities who's going to represent you well. And he does have, some physical tools and upside that I think could translate in the future.
And one other thing on Braden Davis, he will participate in the Under Armour All-Star game. I believe that one is January 8th. I get my dates. Thankfully, again, I'm not going down the path you guys do now, but I believe it's the Under Armour game, the 8th, or does that seem right?
Seems right.
Maybe he's going to he's going to participate in this show as well. So
yes.
That would have been good information to have.
I didn't give you any show notes. But,
flying blind here. Just
we all are, man. That's what signing day is about.
What time we might have Braden Davis for the listeners out there?
Who could say?
Okay, just
we are scheduled. Let's go ahead and fill Bill in on everything.
Yes, please do that.
We are scheduled to have Braden Davis at 10:15 Eastern time, and then we are also scheduled in the third hour of the show to have Gamecock linebacker Signee Stone Blanton at 11:15.
Maybe some other guys along the way.
Hey, maybe somebody will pop up, and we will tell Bill if something
I appreciate.
happens.
No, just go to the phone lines. That's all you got to do. 803-404-6100. If you want to weigh in with some questions for Chris and Wes, you can do that on the Cool Care Heating and Air text, and I'll get to some of those. Braden Davis, again, coming up in about an hour. South Carolina quarterback signee Braden Davis. We will get to him. We will talk more about this recruiting class. It's 3 hours. Gamecock Central in here with 107.5 The Game, partnering up your early signing day special. We will be here all day. Chris and Wes throughout the day, kind of running shop from right here in our studios. They'll be hopping on. We will do until noon here with the three of us. And then I will get out of here because 6 hours of radio is more than enough. But we will turn it over to these guys. Coming up 4 o'clock today, Shane Beamer will meet with the media to talk about his recruiting class. And then at 5 o'clock, you'll be able to hear Shane Beamer in a one-on-one exclusive interview right here on 107.5 The Game with our own Heath Klein. So we'll get into more of that. A little Braden Davis talk, certainly. We'll go into the offensive line. 3 offensive linemen committed in this class. We'll talk about that with Chris and Wes and what it means. A position that South Carolina struggled. Maybe some questions about the offensive line coach. We'll get into all that. You're listening to the early game, or it's not the early game anymore, to the 107.5 The Game early signing day special, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet right here on 107.5 The Game.
and great service.
GamecockCentral.com.
I'm gonna see it coming. I'm gonna tie you up.
Is
I'm gonna take
this the
all
Heath
your
Klein
money.
playlist you're giving me already? That's the Captain Dave playlist. Welcome in. It is the 107.5 Game and Gamecock Central early signing day special. Bill Gunter carrying you through the next 2.5 hours, joined in studio by Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell as we give you the latest news and a rundown, a breakdown on what exactly is happening here as South Carolina 2021 early signing day. And guys, again, it's been an exciting morning, a lot going on, some letters of intent already arriving, and some of those, let's go straight to the offensive line here, because certainly this past year, South Carolina struggling mightily on the offensive line, a position that they have to continue to get better at. A lot of people that I've talked to said the athleticism, guys, has to improve tremendously. And you look at it, Ryan Brubaker has not, at least from what I have seen, Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan Brubaker is not officially signed just yet, but Grayson Mayne and Kason Henry already in. The one thing I like about these guys, they are athletic guys. They're not going to be instant impact players on the offense. I don't expect any one of the three to come in and really compete for playing time right away. They're going to have to get into Luke Day's strength and conditioning program and develop as they go along. But there is a level of athleticism when you talk about Ryan Brubaker in particular being a swimmer at the high school level.
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting skill set with Brubaker. First of all, this guy's like a future team leader, could be a politician one day, or really be a number of things. He's incredibly sharp and has a great family, and had a huge commitment list. Had a huge offer list. You look at some of the schools that recruited him. He had SEC schools like South Carolina and Tennessee, Vanderbilt, high academic school. Then he had Stanford, for instance. He had Penn State, where his father, Jeff, played. So he had an interesting mix of schools. And I think really this summer, when he got down to South Carolina, he kind of fell in love with the place and Shane Beamer and the culture that he's trying to create. But as you said, Bill, a swimmer, a guy with ample size, ample athleticism. Then you go to the others. Grayson Mayne's a guy that they had in camp actually after he committed kind of early to South Carolina. Wes and I saw him in camp. Another kid who's got size, who could probably play tackle or guard. And again, a down the road type of guy. And Kason Henry, he came on the radar a little bit later, as a summer commitment even, but came on the radar a little bit later, and a guy that plays for a really good high school team against really good competition and is pretty nasty. He's got plays with a physicality, a mean streak, and another guy that I really think could play probably a number of positions on the offensive line.
Wes, I think you look at this class in particular, and you two can kind of go back and forth about what y'all in particular like. But again, Chris, you kind of hit on it. The athleticism certainly very good there. But this is a group, again, that I think can play multiple positions. You're going to get them in. Certainly, you need to upgrade the tackle position, but they could play tackle. And Kason Henry is a guy that chose South Carolina over North Carolina, at least on film, guys. I've liked what I've seen, Wes. I've liked what I've seen from Kason Henry. Now, you got to get in, you got to coach him up a little bit, but a lean, athletic guy. He's got some height to him. Reminds me of some of the linemen that Spurrier brought in when you talk about Mike Matulis, Hutch Eckerson, guys like that. Lean guys that you got in, you had to build up through the program.
Yeah, he actually was one of my favorite interviews in this class as well, just from a standpoint of he's got a little bit of a mean streak to him. You see that on film as well. This is a guy that wants to bury people on the football field. And, at the time when South Carolina took his commitment, I believe they were in a position to where they were kind of okay just taking two guys. And I think they already had Maynes and felt good about Brubaker. I don't remember the exact order at this point, but you look back and they liked Henry so much that they were like, we need to add this guy to the class. So I think if you look at this as a three-man class, you really have three guys with distinct skill sets. You have three guys that I think can help this football team in the future. And if you were going to have a top 5 as far as the interviews, as far as guys that just are going to crack you up and say funny things on interviews just because he was so, I would say, direct about his approach on the football field, direct about why he picked South Carolina. Definitely, Kason Henry would be top 5 in this class as far as interviews go.
I'll ask both of you this. Chris, you go first. You look at this offensive line and what they have right now. Taishan Wanamaker, Vershawn Lee, 2 young guys that they like. They brought in John Darius Morgan last year. You look at the younger players on this because you got some guys who are getting older now. Jalen Nichols has been here for a couple of years. Jakai Moore, I think, for a couple of years. Eric Douglas, I think, is close to being a 7th-year senior. But how does this group fit in with the younger players? Some news this week, Vinny Murphy is transferring out. That was actually one that I thought was kind of a loss for South Carolina. I really liked what he had been able to do when given a few opportunities. So I kind of ask you guys, and Chris, we'll start with you and then go to Wes. How do you see these 3 guys fitting into the current crop of younger offensive linemen?
Well, and I think that's you nailed it in that you got to add some versatility, you got to add some athleticism, and you got to have numbers on the offensive line. That's the biggest thing. You want to be able to bring in guys and not, unless they're ready, right? Unless they're ready, you don't want to have to throw them out there too early. So the guy that you mentioned first that's already on the roster, and Taishan Wanamaker, I think is really the one that you circle as having a chance to be a really, really good player. Calhoun County, even though that's the place that produced Alshon Jeffrey, he was still kind of lightly recruited, right? Tennessee made a run at him, but everyone knew that if he got a South Carolina offer, that's where he was going to go. He came in, thought of as probably an offensive guard, but, has moved to tackle after Dylan Wanham was injured this year and really showed some good things. I mean, he showed some athleticism, which we knew he had. He showed a physicality, and he showed that he, plays with kind of some flair at times. He and Eric Douglas out there kind of leading the guys. Another one, I mean, we were talking about this one yesterday, Trey Jones, what's his role going forward?
Good point.
Is he more of a, is he going to be a fullback, or is it more of, when they signed him, they thought he'd be a center in the future? He could still certainly do that with his size, his athleticism, the way he can move. But I think these 3 guys are going to come in. Like you said, Bill, you're not eyeing them to come in and start as a true freshman or even play a significant role next year, but they all have some good traits and different skill sets. I think particularly the maybe the highest upside guy in the future is Ryan Brubaker.
Wes, how do you see South Carolina now approaching the transfer portal? Because again, as I said, and correct me if I'm wrong, we can disagree on this program. We will allow it. But none of these guys I see coming in and being instant impact type guys. South Carolina does need some instant impact guys. Now, one
You mean on O-line?
on offensive line. Yes, we're talking offensive line right now. One guy that I think is interesting, it appears Dylan Wanham is going to come back. Are you guys hearing that? Because Wanham was injured for most of the year. He's a guy that seems like he's been an NFL prospect for 2 or 3 years, but hadn't reached his potential. Dylan Wanham, what are you guys hearing regarding his return to the 2022 team?
Yeah, I think that's the impression we get is that he'll be back. And I think obviously had some injury issues this year that slowed him down and is someone, highly recruited, man, 4-star kid.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina beat really some blue bloods for him back in the day. So, I think he'll want to come back and have a big final year, and certainly is a guy that they're going to need to have a big final year at South Carolina if it does play out like that. But I think you're right, man. Transfer portal has to be, I would say, a priority for South Carolina to hit the portal at that position. Now, I don't think you take a guy necessarily just to take him out of the portal. You're really looking for instant impact. Now offensive line, maybe if you miss on a couple of impact guys and there's someone that can provide depth, you always need more depth on the offensive line. So do you maybe go against that thought a little bit? Yes, but for the most part, if I'm going portal, I'm looking for guys who can come in and make an instant impact. There aren't any specific names right now, but here's the thing about portal recruiting, y'all. We've talked about this on our stream a lot. It's a lot more quiet than sort of traditional recruiting, and really you don't know what's going on with a lot of guys. It's a lot more difficult to track which schools are going after which players in the portal because these guys have been in college. They're not as likely to answer. They're not as likely to do the interviews. A lot of the high profile guys don't even really care what's being said as far as where they're going. They just handle their business more so than worrying about recruiting.
Question for both of you. Chris, we'll start with you. The offensive line this year, did it play to its potential? Was that the problem? Is it a talent issue? Was it a scheme issue? Because what we just talked about, and you get these three guys coming in, and again, you put them in Luke Day right now, Brew Baker, Henry, Grayson Maynes. You don't want to ask them to go in and have to play right away to begin with, not in the SEC. But this line with the players currently there, are they better than what we saw in 2021? Is there more talent? I'm not saying that this is a top 5 offensive line in the SEC. I'm not trying to trick anybody on that. But are they better than what we saw this year? Could you reasonably expect with a better coaching or with a better scheme or whatever? Or no, is that the talent level of South Carolina's offensive line, what we saw, and it does need to be enhanced through recruiting?
So I do think it's both, but to answer your actual question, they can be better. And I think um, the reason I say that is it's not just this idea or concept that they could be better. It's just my opinion. Like I think there's some actual evidence to it because we can look back at last season. Um, Now there were some differences. Obviously, Sedarius Hutcherson, who was probably usually their most consistent guy, and it was a good enough player to catch on with an NFL squad, right? I think you look at what they did, particularly in the run game last season. They had similar concerns at quarterback. They had similar concerns in terms of not having a lot at the receiver position. Shi Smith was really their only, big time threat at the receiver position. Josh Vann emerged this year. We saw injuries and similar concerns at quarterback. Yet they still were able to run the football a lot of times. Sometimes it was against bad competition, right? But they were still able to run the football. This year they weren't able to do that despite bringing everybody except Hutch back. Now, Dylan Wanham, as we said, he was hurt, but you return all your running backs basically. And so I think that for that reason, this is a line that could be better. Now, the question then becomes, well, why? And I think it was a variety of reasons. I do think that, changing schemes plays into that. Sometimes the actual scheme itself or the calls that are made. For instance, South Carolina went away from a lot of the gap scheme and power and counter runs, at least early in the year, that they'd had success with in the previous couple seasons. You saw a lot more zone and things like that. That plays into it. Learning it plays into it. Injuries, and then the quarterback stuff, the receivers, all those different things can weigh into it. Now that said, they can be better, but they can still certainly upgrade because, as you said, Bill, just from a talent perspective, it's not like this is a top 5 offensive line in the conference.
Wes, how much does Spencer Rattler himself help the offensive line? Because I think everybody's going, well, it doesn't matter. You could put me back there. You could put the world's greatest quarterback back there. If you don't have blocking, it doesn't matter. You could have a 5'7", 39-year-old back there with bad knees. It's not going to matter. How much does Spencer Rattler change the offensive line for South Carolina with his ability, maybe his arm strength or anything that he does to be able to help that offensive line?
Are you implying that you're the world's worst quarterback? If
I'm not the world's worst quarterback, height matters. I know Drew Brees has offset that a little bit, but 5'7", if your linemen aren't 5'5", if I'm not playing in the midget league, then I'm in trouble. If I'm not playing in I think that's what it called, the mites, I believe is what it's called, the mites league, the 9 and 10-year-olds. Yeah, then I'm not able to do it. But certainly with Rattler, who talent-wise, physical tools-wise, is going to be the best quarterback on South Carolina staff. How much does he help the offensive line?
Yeah, I think when you have a guy who not just can expand plays or extend plays, but can get the ball out quick, that matters. Dropping back, diagnosing what the defense is doing in a hurry, and then just getting the ball out with a quick release, which I think Rattler does. That matters. Now, obviously, all this stuff is tied together. You need to see some improvement from the quarterback position. You need to see some improvement from the offensive line. You need to see play calling improvement. And, you need to see improvement from all the other guys, the running backs picking up on as far as pass pro as well. So there's a lot of different things that I believe go into whether or not you have a clean pocket, whether or not you're able to throw the football down the field. I hate when people say the phrase arm talent because it's just like, it's kind of like a cop out word or cop out phrase that people use that, if they don't really know what to say about a quarterback. But as far as just pure ability to throw the football, there's a video. Shout out to our buddy Kev Roche, by the way. He tweeted that there's a video of Rattler to Stogner that's been floating around the internet where Rattler avoids the rush. He keeps his eyes down the field and doesn't even really step into this throw and just flicks it into the end zone. I don't know, 45 yards or something like that. The guy's talent is absolutely off the charts. You're not the consensus number one dual threat quarterback across all the platforms, all the rankings, if you're not really, really good at throwing the football. Now, he's got athleticism as well. He can extend the pocket. He can run when he needs to. He can run when he wants to, I guess. But the guy is a pass-first player from everything I see.
803-404-6100. Again, we'll get to some text messages on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. If you want to weigh in on the Love Chevy phone lines, we'll try and get to you. Coming up in about 35 minutes, we will catch up with South Carolina quarterback signee. He's now a signee. Braden Davis will join us. You can also jump on the live stream that Chris and Wes have got set up during the break here coming up. I'll get some background down so Chris is not in witness protection over there. I know how to fix that. I've dealt with that many a time, and that's an easy fix. But you can jump on. I believe you can do just like you do for the early game. Go to YouTube.com, search Gamecock Central, and you can check us out there and weigh in. See a lot of you weighing in right now on the chat room there that we've got going on. You can look at myself, Wes, and Chris. That should really brighten your early Wednesday morning. But come join us there on the Gamecock Central YouTube page and join in the chat room. We ask that you subscribe to that. You can also, again, hit us up, 803-404-6100. One update for South Carolina signing day. Brian Thomas Jr., about 6'3", 220 pounds, will be another edge type guy, guys. And we'll talk about the defensive line coming up in the next hour. But just quickly, as Brian Thomas Jr. comes in to this recruiting class, it now becomes official. Wes, and then we'll go to Chris. Your quick thoughts on what South Carolina's getting here in Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, this is a kid that, like you said, he's an edge guy. Probably if he was more prototypically sized, would have had offers from everybody in the country. Productive player, special teams guy, team first guy that, kind of just one of those grinders and great pass rusher off the edge, great bloodlines. As you said, a little bit undersized, but I think a guy when South Carolina looked, they wanted to add pass rushers to this class. They weren't going to turn down any edge rushers that they felt like could help and decided to take him. Obviously, you look at the loss of Taishan Barham, who they were really recruiting similarly as an edge guy potentially, and it makes the signing of Brian Thomas even more important. South Carolina, of course, still going after James Pierce, who last check is going to sign in February. I don't know if anything's happened in the last 40 minutes or so, but that was the plan. He was going to sign in February. So they'll continue to go after him. There's a lot of really talented edge guys that are in on for 2023 as well. But I think as far as going out, getting a productive kid, going into Florida, it's a nice pickup for South Carolina and really I would say a low drama recruitment, just sort of went about his process, didn't create a lot of hype for himself, committed to South Carolina kind of low key, and then signs pretty low key today as well.
803-404-6100. Obviously, the news of the morning, Taishan Barham flipping his commitment that he had just made on Saturday from South Carolina to Maryland. That is official. He is signed, and South Carolina linebacker, defensive end coach Mike Peterson has put out a tweet, and it just says #BuckLife, which is the position that Barham was expected to play. It ain't for everybody. And then he's got the 100 emoji.
There we go.
So that
Mike P getting in on the action.
Mike P, it just tells you where things are at. We'll talk about that. We'll get into wide receiver and tight end recruiting. Obviously, Austin Stogner, not a part of today's festivities, but he is a big part of what is a different world in recruiting now when you factor in the transfer portal to go along with the early signing period. We'll talk about the tight ends and the wide receivers as we continue to roll along. You're listening to Gamecock Central 107.5 The Games, early signing day special. Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Bill Gunter here, carrying you through on 107.5 The Game. All right, so now can people hear me? That would be the question. Are you able to?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
See there, you can hear me coming through as not being muted. And then I can go back. Chris shaved. It's a big day when Chris shaved. That's right, Hope. That's good.
You want to talk to everybody for a second?
Do I want to talk to everybody? Hey, good morning. Good morning. Hour number 4 as we get you through here. And we'll get look at that. It's all the years of experience. Patrick has trained me well as I've slid over here to Patrick's seat. But and we're back. We're back. So y'all should be able to hear everything. It looks like Wes has got it set up correctly for the audio. So we'll Rolling along on a early signing day, Wednesday morning, December 15th, 9:45, your official 107.5 The Game time. It is the early signing day special brought to you by Herndon Chevrolet. Bill Gunter, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell here at the luxurious 107.5 The Game studios. We will carry you through until noon today. Pearson Fowler and Preston Thorne from 12 to 1, Jay Phillips and Tommy Moody from 1 to 4. And then Shane Beamer, we will have that press conference right here for you at 4 o'clock today. Shane Beamer addressing the media over at the football operations building. And then at 5 o'clock, make sure you set your calendars, your appointments, your Apple phones or whatever. 5 o'clock today, you can catch Shane Beamer right here, an exclusive one-on-one interview with Heath Klein. We send out the professionals to interview. I'd be asking him, so what donuts did you enjoy when you were on the road recruiting? What was the coffee choice? They don't let me do the important interviews. They just let me hang out with Chris and Wes. Not that you guys aren't important, just more of my style. He's more serious. He's the far more serious one. So he'll get Shane Beamer later today. Transfer portal, guys. And we'll get in next hour, more positions. But, it's funny. I was talking about it. We've done this. Chris, gosh. What was New Keese Richardson? That was Lane Kiffin at Tennessee days. That was 08, 09?
That was the 09 class, I think.
Yeah. That was the first time I really remember talking to you about it. And then Wes, you and I have traveled around a good bit to different places. And did you ever go with me to Atlanta when they did did either of you guys ever go to Atlanta and I think it was the Mario Andretti race kart simulator deal over there? Did y'all ever go for that?
No.
I know I took Josh Lowe over
so.
there. I took Josh Lowe one time, and on the way over there, we stopped at a Waffle House, and he asked for pancakes. It was an incredible trip. Yeah, that's exactly was the reaction.
We're throwing it back here.
Well, it's
for those who don't know, that's a Josh Lowe.
It's
just perfect Josh Lowe story. I feel like.
And remember the Mexican restaurant? He can only order nachos.
I've never seen
this man is eating at a Mexican restaurant
house
in every town in South Carolina.
I've never seen a Waffle House waitress want to fight somebody, but he goes, where the Waffle? He goes, you guys got pancakes here? And that lady, she was. I had to convince her he just doesn't get out much, but things have changed. Things are the transfer portal, and we're really in the second year of it. Last year at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, I think South Carolina had 7 commitments. And we knew they were going to be transfer portal heavy in Shane Beamer's first year. Now we sit here today with 21 commitments, and they're still gonna hit the transfer portal. Austin Stogner, Spencer Rattler, the 2 guys that are most recent, but there's going to be more. How difficult it is to assess recruiting classes for you guys now, or to look? How difficult do you think it is for coaches? Wes, I'll let you go first. Chris, you follow it. When you talk about the recruiting game now, because you're factoring in the recruiting, the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the industry is going to have to catch up as far as how you actually take these classes and rank them. You look at Rivals.com right now, and it's just the high school players that get counted. Now, how do you count transfers when you look at the fact these high school kids come in? Obviously, they have 5 years to play for. So you're looking at projecting guys out throughout the course of their career, and you're trying to figure out what does that look like. You're talking 3-4 years down the road, and you're talking about 4 years of potential on-field impact. Well, with a transfer guy, sometimes you're talking about 1 year. You're talking about a guy's going to come in, he's going to make 1 year of an impact. So how do you factor that into that's for somebody smarter than me, I think, as far as the mathematics of what is the impact of 1 season versus 4 seasons potentially. Now, the other side of that, if you get a guy that is a potential program changer, like a Spencer Rattler, that obviously has an impact that we've talked about, it goes well beyond even on the field, because it just puts your program in a different light with a lot of people, and it sort of gets your program national attention that maybe wasn't there before. How do you factor all that in? I mean, I think most Rattler has 3 years of eligibility left. So from a pure number standpoint, if you're doing this mathematically, you would input that he's got 3 years left. Realistically, Spencer Rattler's not going to be at South Carolina for 3 years.
Well, I said this morning, your goal is, I mean, you hope, look, it could go poorly and he transfer again. Now, he would have to sit out. And that's where I do think the transfer portal in the years to come will slow down to some extent because everybody's using their one-time transfer very early in their career to try and go take advantage of it. But with that being said, Wes, Spencer Rattler's coming here with the intention of, I'm having one good year and I'm going to the NFL. I mean, that was this year. It was supposed to be great year, swing by New York, scoop up the Heisman, go get fitted for the Tucks, be a top 10 draft pick. Didn't go that way. He's not coming here with the intention of spending 2 years in Columbia, South Carolina, which is actually why I think it's a good thing. Luke Doty needs to develop more. Colton got the year, needs to develop more. Braden Davis is not ready. South Carolina's got to stop throwing quarterbacks to the Wolves early on. They're not recruiting Trevor Lawrence's or Deshaun Watson's that are generational talents that come in. Those guys need to develop. But kind of to your point, and Chris, yeah, you hope Spencer Rattler balls out. You win 8 or 9 games, more, who knows? And he goes on, and then I think we take credit for him as an NFL quarterback. I think when he goes to Monday Night Football, 100%. He says University of South Carolina. I don't know, but yeah, you hope that happens this year.
Oh, absolutely. And I think to Wes's point about Rattler, kind of that is something tough to measure. You know, when you look at high school recruits, when you sign, I mean, you mentioned a Trevor Lawrence, Bill, that's something that can like change your program, even the perception of it. And Spencer Rattler, we saw after he committed to South Carolina, it really shook up, college football media, even pro NFL writers, tweeting and stuff about it. And I actually saw Blake Lawrence, who's the CEO of Open Doors, which is a big national level company that studies NIL and has different platforms for it. He said in a story a few months ago that Spencer Rattler was the most marketable player in college football. So that guy is going to Columbia. So that's a big deal. To get back to the transfer question, it is hard because I tend to think, like Wes does, that the industry will catch up and everybody will be coming up with metrics to rank these guys in the class. It's tough for maybe the casual fan to kind of see it because go back to that 2021 class that you mentioned, Bill, small class in terms of high schoolers and junior college. It was very transfer portal heavy. And so what people looked at to measure the class is they looked at it and they said, okay, let me look at the rivals class rankings or whatever, and let's see how they did. And then you saw the number was, what was it, 37th, something like that. And they go, oh, this class is terrible. Well, it didn't have any transfers baked into it. Then your transfers can be anything from 1 year to 4 years and everywhere in between. And we saw some of that with South Carolina. We saw a Carlin Spatel. We saw an Amarian Brown, E.J. Jenkins, Jason Brown. We saw a lot of different levels of that. So it'll be kind of tough to measure it because not all your guys coming in via the transfer portal that need to be put into the rankings somehow, not all of those guys, will be 4-year guys like they are out of high school or out of junior college where you got 2 or 3 year guys.
803-404-6100. Again, that's how you can join us. Obviously, the other guy that's a part of it, look, we're focused on Spencer Rattler. Oh, wow. Yeah, quarterback. All right, come in. South Carolina's quarterback. Austin Stogner, guys. And we're in next hour leading up. Braden Davis will join us in about 20 minutes as he's already signed, and we'll catch up with him. But next hour, the next segment, we'll talk about wide receivers and tight ends and what South Carolina's kind of doing here. Obviously, some people might want just a little background on what you guys can say about the Oscar Delp situation. Just that was obviously a very public recruitment there with the We Won't Delp hashtag. But Chris, Austin Stogner, a favorite target of Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. He is college ready. This is not a developmental guy. He's going to be expected next year to come in and make an instant impact. I think you're looking at him right now saying, all right, that's one starter that we're already penciling in to come in and be a pass catcher and help improve that offense.
Yeah, I mean, Stogner was a big get because there are some young, talented players on this Gamecock offense in the tight end room. Everybody's going to go to Jaheim Bell, but and rightfully so. But I even look at Trey Kenyon. I mean, this guy came into South Carolina with a lot of talent, and you're kind of sitting there going, where is he at? Kind of really takes a rise this year to where he's playing more. He's Nick Muse's backup because he's a guy that, like Muse, can block and catch the football. And I still think he's got a lot more room to grow and progress. But with Stogner, this is a guy that's a former 4-star prospect. And you look at, he has a body of work at Oklahoma to where you lose Muse, who played most of the snaps. In some games, he played every snap of the game on offense. He's gone, as a super senior after this season. And so Stogner is similar to Muse in that they're both big guys who have two-way ability, meaning they can block and they can run. Stogner, you can split him out. You can line him up on the line as a blocker or let him go and run routes for you. 6'6", 255, impressive kid, already has a rapport, obviously, with Shane Beamer and with Spencer Rattler. So this is a guy that can come in and play very early for you.
Next hour, we will get into defensive recruits and cover that a little bit more. Stone Blanton is now a part of the Gamecock class, or has been for about an hour. Donovan Westmoreland and Brian Thomas Jr. I'm seeing on Twitter. Help me here. Nick Eamon Warrior.
You added an extra little flair at the end. It's just Eamon Worry.
Eamon Worry.
There you go.
I'm seeing on Twitter, according to Irmo, high school football has indeed finalized his letter of intent. South Carolina has not announced it yet, but we'll get more into the defensive side of things. Wes, just a few seconds left here in this particular hour. And again, Braden Davis coming up in about 25 minutes. But again, you look at Stogner. What does he do for South Carolina's offense this year? Because we talk a lot about Spencer Rattler, but what do you take from Stogner?
Yeah, I love that pickup, man. I think if it wasn't for Rattler, we'd really be talking about what a massive pickup Stogner is. And, I think obviously tight end is one of those situations where it's not quite the glamour position that quarterback is. You can't make quite as big of an impact, obviously, on every single play. But, I think this is this is a future NFL player. Like, people we talk to believe that he can come in, be an instant impact guy. He's got a very different skill set than maybe a Jaheim Bell. So I think Stogner, big kid, 6'6", can play in line, can be flexed out, great ball skills. You see him catching the football down the field quite a bit. I think he slots right in Nick Muse's spot. And then when South Carolina goes to those two tight end sets that have been really, I think, popular at South Carolina, not just under this staff, but for years, actually, you'll see him on the field with Jaheim Bell at the same time. And, this kid can do it all. I think both of these guys that they got from Oklahoma are future NFL players.
South Carolina last night picking up a commitment from Xavier Short, anonymous texter weighing in. Xavier Short is a huge pickup. I've watched him a lot. He's impossible to bring down and will make an immediate impact. We'll talk about Short. We'll talk about Landon Sampson and the rest of the South Carolina offensive commitments in the next hour. Braden Davis coming up as well in about 20 minutes. You're listening to Gamecock Central on 107.5 The Game's early signing day special, brought to you by Herndon Chevrolet. Continue listening here on 107.5 The Game.
Our early signing day special, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown Chevy dealer. Stop
is the 107.5 The Game and Gamecock Central early signing day special. Patrick Brett, myself, and Jen Jensen got you going bright and early this morning, 6 a.m., and now we're rolling along. Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell from GamecockCentral.com. Make sure you get over there and check out all the great work that is taking place with them. You can also join us this morning. Go to their YouTube page. Go to the Gamecock Central YouTube page and join us on their live stream as well. Looks like a lot of people are involved in the chat room, asking questions, talking, just enjoying a very nice Wednesday morning as the South Carolina football roster continues to grow by 21 prospects today, or is expected to grow by 21 prospects today. Taishan Barham, obviously the breaking news of the morning, electing to sign with Maryland. But guys, without going too in depth, we're not expecting. Are you leaning? Could there be another surprise today? Good, bad? Like, I will admit, I just, until I see the Landon Sampson letter of intent be put up, that is a guy that I'm keeping an eye on. That is certainly a prospect that just want to make sure, because he's to me, is an impact player. We're going to talk about the guys to go along with Braden Davis, who will join us here in about 10 to 15 minutes. But any other surprises, transfer portal or recruiting or just anything else that maybe fans should stay tuned to Gamecock Central throughout the day?
Well, we certainly recommend they stay tuned to
Right.
Gamecock Central, but and this program. But no, I don't think, Bill, there's not any surprises, good or bad, further surprises that we are anticipating today. Now, I will say, after today, we are definitely going to be continuing to track transfer portal activity. We know that that's going to continue to be high. Receiver is going to be a priority position. Linebacker, you would think, is a potential. Running back, maybe even, or an offensive line in the portal. So there will be more activity. Just today, here on Wednesday, December 15th, don't think there's going to be any more. And by the way, Bill, since you mentioned Landon Sampson, his father, John, on Twitter, tweeted out a picture of a table that is completely adorned, I guess you could say, with Gamecock stuff, and said that it's almost time to sign. So I think, everything that we've heard has been extremely positive for Landon Sampson. I think that's further evidence, and that's a really big pickup, I think, for South Carolina.
We'll get to that. Updating it real quick. I'm basing this on Gamecock Football, the Twitter account at Gamecock Football on Twitter. They are welcoming home Ryan Brubaker, so the third offensive lineman of the class now in all three offensive linemen. I like the offensive line class. Again, I think they're going to need development over time. Today's not the day to discuss who's coaching them or what direction the offense is going. We got plenty of time to do that. And you got the Ask Chris and Ask Wes threads on Gamecock Central. You can go bother them with those questions. So we're not going to worry about that today. But continuing on with the offense, guys. And yes, Landon Sampson. This was a recruiting period that I know Justin Stepp wanted to do more in. They went after Jaden Gibson. Not a lot of luck there. Went after C.J. Smith. Didn't get him. Obviously, we've talked about Antonio Williams. Oscar Delp was a guy that they went in on at tight end. Ramon Brown at running back. It wasn't the best. I don't think we can lie about this and say it's the best offensive class I've seen South Carolina bring in. But let's start with Landon Sampson, who we're expecting to sign here, hopefully, in the next few hours. And that is one that you look at. I like what I've seen on film from him. I think he's a little underrated. I think this is a kid that comes in, given South Carolina's position needs there at wide receiver, and could make an impact in 2022.
Yeah, he's probably one of my favorite guys in this class as far as just instant impact goes. You look, this is a kid that South Carolina offered in the summer. They kind of fell in love with him as a prospect. I think he hit it off instantly with Justin Stepp, who did a great job getting in early, building the relationship. There was a prior relationship from when Justin Stepp was recruiting Texas when he was at SMU and, of course, at Arkansas. So Riley Dodge, the head coach there at Southlake Carroll, and Stepp are good friends, I believe. So this all just sort of made sense. I think Landon Sampson and his family were probably sitting there. Nebraska was after him. They had offered. I think Baylor had offered. Ohio State was talking to him. But I think they were looking around saying, like, where are the other major schools here? And South Carolina offers. And, I believe he ended up committing before he even visited or was in place he was going to take an official visit, but they found out you couldn't take an official visit during the time period that it was in the summer. He goes ahead, he commits, and has been locked into the Gamecocks ever since. TCU did offer earlier this week. There's actually a picture, I guess, of Landon on Twitter as like a, I don't know, 6-year-old holding a TCU ring or something, I think. So I think that offer probably did mean something to him. But as Chris said, John Sampson tweeting the Gamecock table there.
Yeah, I've seen it. We got some, what is it? You got a whole bunch of stuff going on that. Yeah, some balloons. A couple people have sent this to me since I've brought it up, and John Sampson, the father, saying it's almost that time. So good news for him. Chris, guy's got some speed. He's a polished route runner, and he has some speed. And at this point in time, as we sit here on December 15th at 10:09 a.m., I think we're expecting Josh Vann to be back. I think we're expecting Josh Vann. You never know in this day and age. Sidney Rice tricked Steve Spurrier many moons ago, but you expect Josh Vann. And again, for a wide receiver room, that those positions are wide open right now. Outside of Josh Vann, you need another guy to step up. Again, I think Landon Sampson, is he an early enrollee? I know he's going to play in an all-star game, and that's huge. So he is.
He is an early enrollee. He'll be able to get a jump. And I love the word that you use to describe him, or the wording there, the polished route runner. This guy does pretty much everything well. He's not 6'3" or 6'4", right? Like that's maybe the only, if you want to call that a strike. I don't. I think there's a place for guys like Landon who have his size, but he's got speed, like you said. He runs very good routes, whether it's the short and intermediate stuff or deep routes, and he has great hands. He's a natural pass catcher. He can catch passes, little out routes or slants, and in those tight areas, and he can track balls downfield as well. So he's the type of guy, and I think the staff is fully expecting him to come in and push very hard to play a lot, maybe even start, and certainly having the ability to come in January, get acclimated, and then go through spring ball, I think is going to be huge. So this is the guy, when you look through the class and go, who is an early impact guy, he's in the top 5, top 3 probably for me.
Well, I had him, unfortunately, before the Taishan Barham news broke this morning. I said the defensive guy was Barham because the early enrollee is important to me. If you get a guy, I love Stone Blanton. We'll talk linebackers here as we continue to move through the program. Stone Blanton expected to join us, by the way, according to Chris and Wes, sometime in the 11 o'clock hour. So you can continue listening here. Again, Braden Davis coming up in about 5 to 10 minutes. But I had Landon Sampson as my offensive guy because he's going to be an early enrollee because he comes from Riley Dodge's program out at South Lake Carroll. It's a program where they put a high priority on fundamentals. This is a kid that's going to come in that Justin Stepp's going to be able to advance pretty quickly. And guys, I'll be honest, Georgia State, I don't know what time they'll play next year, noon, 3:30, 7 o'clock. I expect to see Landon Sampson targeted in that game and to get some significant snaps, barring that he stays completely healthy.
No, I agree, man. I think you saw instantly when South Carolina got this kid, you were like, there's one. Because I think, and I say that meaning I was looking at this class saying, can you add a couple of instant impact receivers going into 2022? Certainly, you want guys who are going to develop and stuff like that. But Carolina, let's be honest, they need a guy or two who can come in and hit that position and play a lot. And obviously, here locally, Antonio Williams was the other high school guy that they were heavily targeting. Missed on that one, but they get Landon Sampson. I think you're right. I think Sampson, Josh Vann, a portal guy. I think, we'll see who the portal guy is. Are they able to make a move with Jacob Copeland from Florida? That's a guy to keep an eye on. Everybody's talking about Theo Weiss online just because it makes sense, right? I don't know how much actual traction is there. Would they love to have him? Of course. So I think as we move forward with this thing, with the portal, you're going to see South Carolina heavily hit several specific positions. Wide receiver will certainly be one of those. And, I think it's important to remind everybody, this is the early signing period for high school prospects. Well, portal recruiting will continue well after today. It never really stops. And everyone will reassess their boards after these 3 days. maybe there's a high school guy out there who just sort of had a great senior year and hasn't quite blown up yet. You're never going to just shut the door. You keep looking, but certainly to go back to Landon Sampson, not to get off topic, massive get for South Carolina once he locks it in and signs later on today.
Not a big offensive class. I think maybe we look at 2023 as being the class where they try and go more offense heavy. This is more of a defensive class. Just two other offensive players to really get into. Kylie Horton, and let me know if I'm saying Kylie. Thank you. Yes, because trust me, we've already discussed on the early game, pronouncing of names, not my strong suit when doing a radio program. Kylie Horton, 6'3", 190 pounds, Clarendon Hall. It's a guy that physically, athletically, has SEC level talent, but it's going to probably take him some time and some coaching to get to where he needs to go. This is going to be more of a guy that maybe we're talking about Landon Sampson, seeing him against Georgia State. Kylie Horton probably going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, more of a developmental guy, but I think it's the type of guy, Bill, that in 3 years, 4 years, you wouldn't want him playing for App State or something like that and looking back and saying, why didn't South Carolina recruit this kid? And we have seen some of those. We've seen some on the other side as well. But I'll just go back to summer. You know, Wes and I, we cover all 10 of the summer camp days every year at South Carolina. And we saw this big, 6'3", 6'4" kid running around and kind of going, who is that? And we kept getting these tips of, man, this Kylie Horton kid, he plays 8-man football. It's kind of hard to get a read on a guy when you're watching 8-man football film because he's playing against competition that he's way better athletically than everybody else. So even if he's dominating, it's kind of hard to get a read on it. Well, South Carolina had him in camp. He tested extremely well in terms of his measurables, how well he ran, his vertical. They worked him out at receiver. They worked him out at DB and eventually landed on, this is a kid we need to take a chance on, and so they went with it. It didn't take long to wrap it up. So he is going to have some learning to do, some developing. He's going to have to adjust to the SEC level, of course. But when you look at some of the raw physical tools and ability, he has that. He has that in spades. And so it's going to be really interesting to track his development. I just wouldn't expect him to come in and play very early in year one.
You are listening to 107.5 The Games and Gamecock Central's signing day special here. And Chris and Wes have been nice enough to book guests for us throughout the day. They were even nice enough to tell me about some of them when we started the program. One of them joining us now, South Carolina signee now. You are officially a signee, Braden Davis. It has been recruiting. I used to cover it. I never 5'7" backup point guards at Lexington High School were never in high demand. So I never went through the recruiting process, but it's been a process for you. Welcome to the South Carolina family. And just how does it feel this morning to officially get all this done with?
Oh, man, it's awesome. It's a different feeling, to sign the dotted line and get that submitted and, just everything be official. Just ready to go, ready to get down in January now.
What you committed kind of early on and you've spent the last few months. What's it been like to watch the evolution of Shane Beamer's first season in Columbia? Because I think even you would say, hey, I believe in the staff. I believe in what I've seen. But you probably wanted to at least watch the head coach run the ball club and handle the games. What's it been like for you watching this team evolve from the beginning of August through the Clemson game and now going to a bowl game here in less than 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, even back then, you could tell that Coach Beamer just got something different in him, and he's getting the program in the right direction. And he's definitely proved it over these last couple of months, and to the point where we're at, going to a bowl game, I think he's definitely on the right track. And with today going on and everybody signing, you just see all the work that we've been putting in and starting to pay off.
Braden, this is Wes Mitchell. Hope you're doing well, man. Thanks again for joining us. What has the last, week and a half been like for you, man? I'm trying to count up the accolades. So today you sign, right? Over the weekend, win a state title, right? I think you had a game-winning touchdown pass in there. Gatorade Player of the Year in Delaware. Can you talk about all those things and just what this last week or so has been like for you, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Everything that's been going on. But, that's all just stuff that's come along with, playing good football and playing as a team. My goal was just to win a state championship. And then, getting Gatorade Player of the Year, that was awesome. And then to actually win the state championship is just everything paying off. And, now signing day coming around. So everything's just awesome. I'm excited about it.
Braden, Chris Clark here. Appreciate you joining us, man. I remember having a conversation with your high school coach, Coach Bloom, before, your senior year there at Middletown. And he had a lot of great things, obviously, to say about you. But we also talked about some of the growth that he wanted to see in your game. One of those areas was he wanted you to run even more, and use your legs even more. So tell us a little bit about your progression from even, freshman year at Middletown when you were playing behind, I think, a senior that they had, just the growth in your game from then to now and what you've continued to work on and what you want to keep working on before you get to South Carolina.
Yeah, I just feel like mentally I've just developed to a different level, especially this year. Just the amount of things that I've been doing, working within our offense, and the amount of things that I'm seeing on the field. Like you said, I've kind of gotten to where I can, know when running is going to be effective in the game, so I can, beat a defense that way and know when I need to sit back in the pocket and, deliver a strike. So really just my knowledge of the game is something that I've been improving and plan on continuing improving when I get down to South Carolina.
He is Braden Davis, South Carolina quarterback, signee. I don't know if that means anything to you now to say signee and not commitment, but your background. I don't know how many people know this. You're a father, an NFL veteran, spent several years in the league, has gone on to do some great things, was with with the Eagles from 91 to 95, the Falcons, 96 to 97, played with the Packers a little bit. He was a unanimous All-American as a college player. What have you learned from him? Not just about the game of football, but about life and handling this whole process over the last several months.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's definitely a great resource, and he just kind of tells me what it takes to get to where I want to be. My goal is to make it to the NFL and be successful. So he's been through the process himself. He's been on the other side of it as a coach at Tennessee, and he's just a great resource. He knows the ins and outs of everything, what you need to do, really just to get to where you want to be.
As he helped you as you went through this recruiting process, and it started early on because of your physical abilities, because of your talent, what were the main things that you looked for when it came to choosing a college in terms of whether it was relationships with coaches, whether it was offensive scheme, whether it was warm weather? I don't, what were some of the things that played a large part in leading Braden Davis to South Carolina?
Yeah, well, those things were definitely part of it. I looked at just about everything I could think of, and I would say the main things were just a place where I'd be able to come in, compete for a spot, and just be able to develop and get to where I want to go, which is the NFL. I believe that South Carolina is definitely the place where I'm going to be able to do that under Coach Satterfield and Coach Beamer, and I'll hopefully be able to come in and compete for a spot.
I think most South Carolina fans would love to be in your shoes. All right. There is the thing that you've gotten to see. Now, I don't know how much you knew about it going into your recruitment. And then as you got to take an official visit down here, most people, I think, would love to run out to 2001 through the smoke with the band.
Oh, yeah.
The first time you saw that, can you describe your reaction? Because it's one thing to see it. Yeah, I'm sure they showed you some videos and they got YouTube videos. But being in person, the first time you got to see it, can you describe your reaction and just the feeling that you got watching that happening and knowing that about 10 months from today, you're going to get to do it for the first time?
Yeah, so that was just, I can't even explain it. It was just, so we were in the recruiting section where we sit to watch the game, and we were just sitting behind it. You hear everything going on and the team walking out. And then everybody's just loud. Your chest is just pounding right behind everybody, like kind of like seeing how it's going to be when you're going through it. Yeah, my chest was just pounding. I was just recording everything, just jaw was dropped. It was just a surreal experience.
Braden, you're one of about 20, 21 guys who are also signing with South Carolina today. I was wondering Have you gotten to maybe know some of the other guys that are signing, some of your future teammates? What's that been like? Just maybe getting to know either over social media, text, or even in person on some of these visits you've taken. Just getting to know the guys that are going to be your teammates for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, we're all in a group chat and we text back and forth, and it's good to just get to meet everybody and kind of see who you're going to be playing with and see that everybody's really like-minded and everybody's headed in the same direction, has the same goal in mind. So it's just a good group of guys that we've got coming in. Definitely.
Yeah. Yes. And speaking of coming in, you're an early enrollee, so that means it's right around the corner for you, man. What's the plan? I guess it's December 15th today. Do you know when you move in? Have you started to make those plans? What exactly is the process for you? Going through Christmas and then the New Year's. What are you going to be doing, and kind of how does this work for you?
Yeah. So I believe move-in date is the 5th, and then classes start on the 10th. So I'll just be driving down, I believe, on the 4th or something like that, and moving in on the 5th. And then just between now and then, I'll just be getting my body right after the season, and then getting back into more intense lifting, getting ready for off-season training.
Awesome, man. So you can't see this right now, but on our video feed, we've got your senior highlights going right now, making some big plays here. What would you say was maybe your biggest improvement from junior year to senior year? Obviously, you had a big year, like I said earlier, Delaware Gatorade Player of the Year. What was your focus this season? What will your focus be moving forward from what you've talked to the coaches at South Carolina about?
Yeah, like I said, I would just say my knowledge of the game. So like almost every play this year, I would be going through, counting the box, just reading their front, reading where backers would be blitzing from, reading the coverage on the receivers if it's 3 over 3, 3 over 2, just things like that. And then snap the ball, you're just checking to see, blitzes, things like that, safety rotation, and then you get into your progression after that. So I just feel like there's things like that I've improved on that maybe I wasn't doing as a freshman, that definitely been working on so that I can improve my game in that way.
He is Braden Davis. He will be at the University of South Carolina in just a few weeks. You can watch him go through spring practice and watch him develop. Before all that happens, Braden, before we let you go, congratulations. You're a Under Armour All-American. You'll participate. You are participating in the game. You're on the list, right? You're not having to skip that to move down or anything, right? Okay, just making sure.
No, sir.
But you get to participate in that. What does that honor mean to you to participate in the Under Armour All-American game January 2nd in Orlando, Florida? Maybe go put some Disney ears on or whatever it is. But what does that mean to you, and what will you look to accomplish there before heading over to Columbia?
Yeah, that's an honor to be in that group of players, the top players across the country. And then everybody just competing against each other. I think it's going to be a great environment. Awesome to see where you stack up against people across the entire country.
Yeah, Braden, last thing I got for you here, man. Obviously, it's been a big topic of discussion in the last few days. So we got to ask, what was your thought of Spencer Rattler signing with South Carolina and sort of being able to share a quarterback room with him, learn from him? Just what was your reaction, and what were your thoughts on Rattler as a player?
No, I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I think it can only help the program. I think it's going to be awesome to, be able to sit behind somebody who's, has experience and has played at a really high level in the past. So it's going to be awesome to, compete with him, compete for that job right away. But, just learn things that he brings to the table.
As we are finishing up with you, some good news. I believe a guy, his father spoke very highly of you the one time I talked to him. Landon Sampson has officially been confirmed by South Carolina football, Braden, as now being a member of the class. Just quickly before we let you go, if you had a chance to talk, I think, again, Landon's father, I talked to him one time, spoke incredibly highly of you and thinks the ability you have. Just your thoughts on Landon Sampson, a wide receiver coming in with you.
Oh, he's a great dude. He's a tough football player. I'm excited. I love that family. Love Landon. I just can't wait to get after it with him when we get down there.
Appreciate you taking time to join us. You are now an official signee of the University of South Carolina. No longer a commitment. You are locked and loaded to come down to Columbia, and you'd be taller than all three of us here in the studio, by the way. I think even if we were on each other's shoulders, you'd still be taller. So it's you have a great time. Congratulations. Good luck in Orlando. We look forward to seeing you here in the coming months.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Take care. Braden Davis.
Thanks, Braden. Have a good one, man.
South Carolina quarterback signee, Braden Davis. First one in this morning from South Carolina football's Twitter. We'll continue on. We'll talk more with Chris and Wes. Landon Sampson is officially official. He's part of the Gamecock team. We'll talk about that and continue on breaking down this signing class. You're listening to 107.5 The Game and Gamecock Central's early signing day special here on 107.5 The Game.
A lot of people right now are heading to lunch. They're not going to sit at their office. You play that a little bit. A good morning, you get some commitments. There's a lot of people across the state right now who hear that and go, you know what? It's lunchtime. I'm ready to get out of the office. Work production dropping significantly as a good day. It obviously the Taishan Barham news, not the news you want, but guys, overall, it's a day for South Carolina fans to feel, I think, better about the direction of the program. You hear a great interview there with Braden Davis, who will be on campus next month. News just coming in, Landon Sampson officially in, and NIL, certainly something that now continues to move to the forefront. And you guys at Gamecock Central have Garnet Trust. That is something you feel very strongly about. You're working with players now. I know on your website you've done some exclusive interviews. Talk a little bit about what exactly Garnet Trust is and how, I guess, fans of the University of South Carolina can help impact that.
Yeah, so Garnet Trust is, along the lines of what we've seen across the college football landscape. Name, image, likeness. When the laws were passed, Florida, California, right, were among the first, and then there was kind of this scramble for other states to catch up. Right now, there's no national law. There's some NCAA guidelines that kind of govern, what are the guidelines, what are the laws, what are the parameters for name, image, and likeness deals, and it has completely changed the college football landscape with what athletes can do. Basically, they can do deals, endorsement deals, media appearances, autograph signings, things like that. And it's completely legal to do so as long as you do it in a compliant fashion. And so it's also changed the media landscape. So when we discussed it at GamecockCentral.com, we knew that media was going to have some kind of role in that. And that's where Garnet Trust was born. And the short version is athletes can now be paid for legitimate NIL opportunities. So fans can get involved in that bill by basically, for lack of a better term, crowdfunding different NIL opportunities, sponsored interviews, and things like that. As you said, we've done some of those with Gamecock players, and also businesses, that want to find ways to connect with South Carolina student athletes that need guidance on the process, that need media production, things of that nature. They can also check out Garnet Trust, garnettrust.com, and it has a lot more information on it.
Wes, how does Garnet Trust impact? How does it impact players? For people going, okay, well, I do this or I do that. What exactly am I giving to? How does it impact what you guys are trying to do, and how does it impact the player?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, it's awesome. It's really a new whole wave of opportunities from a GamecockCentral.com standpoint. Gamecock Central is the media arm of Garnet Trust, is how it's structured, and we've been able to do these one-on-one in-depth interviews where you're actually able to sit down with the guys, not in a press conference setting, but kind of, actually let fans get to know them a little bit more off the field. And that's been really fun to be a part of from a fan standpoint. It lets fans directly support the players. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways you can support South Carolina athletes. You can support college athletes in general by giving to different things. But this is a direct way for them to impact the players. And I think from a business standpoint, we've learned, NIL has been a buzzword. Everybody knows what that means, but there's a lot of businesses we've found in Columbia that don't know exactly how to sort of execute that. And I've had several people say, "Hey, I'd love to be able to do something with South Carolina players. How do I do it? What are the rules? What am I allowed to do?" And it's because we've all been sort of taught for years, you can't do that with a player. Can't do that. That's not allowed. Now I think we all have to transform how we view things, because as long as you do it in a compliant way, which everything under Garnet Trust is, it's completely legal. So if a business wants to directly support a player, all they'd have to do is contact Garnet Trust, go to garnettrust.com, be like, "Hey, can you, how do I do this?" And then their money can go directly to supporting that player, as long as the player, there's some exchange, be it, a tweet supporting the business, the business being able to use the player's likeness in their own content and stuff like that. So that's the really long answer. The short answer is that it is an entire new wave of possibilities.
Chris, with what we see here, with what you guys are doing, as you see what you guys are doing and match it up with what you see other people doing, because college football, new world, transfer portal, recruits, NIL, it's a new world out there. How does name, image, likeness? How do you see Garnet Trust as compared to what I think Texas has got? What, $50,000 pancakes for long? I forget what it was, but and then you got the gym owner down in Miami who's bring back the U and let's just pay him.
Were those Waffle House pancakes?
It's a Josh Lowe thing. Yeah, it's who knows, but you see it across the board, and I do think there is a misconception that South Carolina fans can't match up with other fan bases, and that's not true. And
Sure.
So, how do you see Garnet Trust matching up with what you see from other universities at this time?
Well, it's been really interesting because it has grown every day. There are not many days that go by that some type of, I guess you could use the word like a collective, or some type of localized NIL company. Because again, the schools can't do this. They are prohibited by law from creating NIL opportunities. So it's up to businesses, fans to do these in a legal and compliant way. So when Garnet Trust officially launched on November 15th, I think there were between 15 and 20 similar companies across the country, and that number has grown since that time. So we've seen Texas has a few different things, like you mentioned, Bill. One of them is called Clark Field Collective, which has the backing of some pro players or former pro players. They had $10 million initially when they started, right? We've seen Montlake Futures out in Washington has the backing of Amazon, Deloitte, Alaska Airlines, some big companies like that. The Gator Collective down in Florida already has 1,000 fan, paying members, supporters, and they have distributed a good bit of NIL dollars for legitimate opportunities for their players. So the way that I see it, Bill, is, this is a cool way for fans to connect directly with players. It's legal, it's compliant. And I'll echo Wes in that is a tough thing to wrap your head around, right? Because we have been conditioned for so long to think the other way, but you can do it. And the thing is, these are already at some schools that South Carolina competes with, and that will continue. It will every single college, town, or city, whatever you want to call it, I believe, will have some type of NIL initiative, program, business, or even multiple ones soon, because it's becoming an integral part of player support in college, and even indirectly, you look at the recruiting implications. This is something that prospects are going to be looking at. And I think there's been a really good response from South Carolina fans so far, and businesses even, as they continue to learn about it and people continue to understand the model.
And as people that if people hear this morning, certainly you can go to GamecockCentral.com and read about it. But Chris, Wes, if somebody wants to get in touch with y'all or wants to find out more without just going to the website, phone number, email, how do people get in touch with you, either to be a part of it or just to learn more?
Yeah, so garnettrust.com, like you said, is the website. There's a frequently asked questions. You can actually, if you want to become a financial supporter and connect and get some of these exclusive opportunities that Garnet Trust has for supporters, you can do that. If you have a question, you can email me, Chris@garnettrust.com. 2 T's, garnettrust.com. Chris@garnettrust.com. I'll be glad to answer any questions about it, or you can visit the website for more information.
Definitely make sure you go and visit that. Real quick, as you guys did recruiting interviews, and I don't think people realize how many recruiting interviews, because you don't just interview the 21 guys that are committed. There are other prospects you spend time covering. I remember tracking down Braxton Berrios, it felt like, for months, only to then see him sign with Miami, and a lot of wasted text messages and phone conversations. How much have you heard from players, prospects in some of your interviews regarding decisions that they make and how NIL is affecting it?
I think you got exact numbers, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, I do. I was going to say it's a great question. So several weeks ago, Bill, I did kind of an unofficial poll of guys in the 2023 and 2024 class mostly. There were some seniors sprinkled in. It was probably 50 to 75 guys, so a relatively small sample size. But the question I posed is, hey, if you are considering several schools and one of those schools has significantly less NIL opportunities for you within their college town or their environment, what kind of effect will that have on your recruitment? And I think it was 63% of them said that it would have either some effect or a big effect, right? So that goes to show, that's what I'm saying. This is in a different way because the schools aren't creating it. And NIL deals can never be used as a direct recruiting inducement, to be clear. You cannot do that by law. but prospects are going to be looking at the different environments and business opportunities. So that number actually, I think, is going to grow because NIL has really not set in. It's been around at most places since the summer. And so as it continues to proliferate, as more organizations locally pop up, I think that number is going to grow because it's going to be pushed more and more by the fan bases and indirectly, by those college towns.
Make sure you go to GamecockCentral.com. You can ask questions there, and you said the website is garnettrust.com. Is that correct? Okay.
That's right.
To get in touch or to follow up with any questions or information you like regarding Garnet Trust. We'll continue talking about the class. South Carolina has a new signee, according to the Twitter page. It is Emery Floyd, who, quite frankly, about a month and a half ago, maybe I did not know if he would be a part of the class. Looked like he was flirting quite heavy with the University of Florida, but 15 minutes ago, Gamecock football putting out a welcome home to Emery Floyd, a defensive back. We'll get into discussions on the defense. It's a secondary class that is heavy on prospects coming in and how Torian Gray can coach them up. Emery Floyd, one of those. And coming up, give me a correct time, guys. What do we got? About 25 minutes, 30 minutes? Stone Blanton?
11:15 Eastern.
11:15? Is that okay? I didn't know if Wes Wes is very serious here with he's looking at his phone. You guys are very serious today. So we will catch up with Stone Blanton in the next hours. I'm laughing at you guys. It's an enjoyable day.
I'm laughing at your ability to say names. That really
when you start your day
for
off,
a radio guy, that really is your
it's not important at all.
That's your weakness, though.
Not important at all. Taishan Banks. Taishan.
I listened to that one this morning and chuckled, and I was ready to make fun of you before. I was like, wait a minute, what if Bill's right? What if Wes and I have been saying Kawan or K1 and that's not right?
Kawan.
But we think it's Kawan Banks.
That's how we roll.
Nobody knows.
It's Kawan Banks.
It's Kawan. We're rolling with it. It's official. Yeah.
0 for 17 this morning. I am on pronouncing names. You're listening to the Gamecock Central and 107.5 The Game early signing day special here. We continue to roll on after this.
Yeah, I'll hop in here and for those on our stream, I apologize. I think we were muted there for a second, but um he my expectation is he is not playing in the bowl game. I asked basically is this immediate, and I was told yes.
Okay.
So that he will immediately hit the portal. So yeah, Zeb Nolan will, I guess, be your
He'll
starter
be the guy.
in the bowl game.
Be interesting to see if they look to Colton Gauthier in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, he has preserved his redshirt season. He's been around now for almost a year. I don't think he starts. You don't want to start him. Let Zeb Nolan go out. But I think what you got is Jason Brown had some mobility to him, Chris, that North Carolina might be able to expose now, given Zeb Nolan mobility not quite as agile as Jason Brown.
Yeah, no doubt. And you made a great point earlier with Gamecock fans, the need to be thankful for Jason Brown. He came in with, some hype, not Spencer Rattler level hype, obviously, because his track record was at a lower level at St. Francis, and he didn't have the former 5-star big program pedigree. But this was a kid that Gamecock fans were very intrigued by, and it took a while for him to adjust and kind of make his move on this roster. And it took some other things happening. Again, we said at the very beginning of the show, this has been a weird year, on the quarterback front. Injuries, both Luke Doty, who began the year as a starter, and Zeb Nolan, both sustaining injuries, at some point during this season. So Jason Brown steps in, and as it turned out, you think about the two signature wins this year for South Carolina. They were Florida and Auburn, and both of those were completely necessary for South Carolina to get to bowl eligibility. So, quarterback's a unique position. There's one ball. Quarterbacks, if you sign quarterbacks who can play and guys who want to play and they don't play another position or not really as capable of playing another position, if they're true quarterbacks, they're going to transfer, if you stack them like that. So with Spencer Rattler coming in, South Carolina signs a Spencer Rattler to bring him in to presumably be the guy. And so Jason Brown has another year of eligibility. And for him, he looks around and decides to go elsewhere.
Well, I think the big thing here, as you mentioned, when he has another year, he only has 1 year. I think this is a situation where if he had 2 years, maybe he's willing to stick it out. Maybe he's at least willing to compete in the spring and see where the chips may fall. But this is a situation that, Jason Brown needs to go somewhere where he is pretty much guaranteed a starting spot. Whether he has NFL potential or not, I'm not an NFL draft guru on that, so I can't speak to that. But what I can say is it makes total sense. You had a feeling. I wasn't on the radio the last 2 days, Monday or Tuesday, but the general feeling was that, if South Carolina landed a Spencer Rattler, that this was going to cause some commotion in the quarterback room. I don't see a need for Luke Doty and Colton Gauthier to transfer. We just heard from Braden Davis, who likes the thought of learning behind Spencer Rattler. So you don't worry about him. And obviously he is already signed this morning. But for Jason Brown, it'll be interesting to see where he goes, how he performs next year. And again, I think South Carolina fans should be very thankful for him and for what he provided, because I don't see how South Carolina's bowl eligible with him not stepping in against Florida and Auburn.
No, I agree 100%. And, to y'all's point, here's the thing. Spencer Rattler not coming in here to hang out and watch and wave at Bill in the stands over there. So
yeah,
he's coming into play. And I think, I think Jason Brown, I'm sure this was a tough decision for him. I'm sure it hit hard for him. But if you're South Carolina and you have the chance to bring in Spencer Rattler, you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely have to make that move, right? So they make the move, and I think if you're Jason Brown, you probably feel like you have to make the move as well, because you do have 1 season of eligibility left. And he, by the way, congrats to Jason Brown. He graduated on Monday, so he is a graduate transfer. He can play right away. He got his degree, and I think it's one of those things. It is kind of a breakup. You hope that it's at least a kind of a mutual shake hands and everybody's still cool breakup, because again, Jason Brown, y'all were there. He provided a spark to this South Carolina offense down the stretch. Clemson game didn't go the way anybody wanted it to on the Carolina sideline, but Florida, Auburn, he brought a spark to the offense. So I think everybody here, everybody listening or watching should wish Jason Brown well because he's handled it the right way. Again, I was getting some further confirmation. It's supposed to be an immediate thing.
Okay.
Don't expect him to play in the bowl game.
So we got time to talk about that. We also got time. Next hour, Stone Blanton will join us around 11:15 a.m. We'll get into the defensive recruits there, defensive line, and certainly the secondary. We'll get Chris and Wes's take on that as well as your thoughts. You're listening to 107.5 The Game and Gamecock Central's early signing day special right here on 107.5 The Game, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet. We got more for you. Hour number 3 on the way. I'm sure maybe he'll address the Jason Brown situation a little bit. A lot to get into for him today, as he will be able to actually talk about Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner. He'll be able to talk about Jason Brown. He'll be able to talk about this class. And then at 5 o'clock, we will put his feet truly to the fire. Heath Klein, our intrepid reporter, our guy, Heath Klein. We bring in Heath for the serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're more of a cut-up kind of group. We were in the off-camera, off-air a minute ago. We were talking about, what is it, croissants out there, and Chris is like, oh, man, time's flying by. I was like, well, I've been here for 5 hours right now. It's all in the eye of the beholder. But we will get you through one more hour, but that does not mean we are done talking about the early signing day here on 107.5 The Game. It is the early signing day takeover with Gamecock Central. It's sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet. Again, 4 o'clock this afternoon, we will carry live Shane Beamer's press conference to break down a lot of stuff going on in South Carolina football. And then 5 o'clock, Heath and Shane will have a one-on-one sit-down that you can hear right here throughout the day. So don't turn that dial. Again, 15 minutes ago, breaking news, Jason Brown entering the transfer portal. And guys, just to clear up any misconceptions that people have, no, Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner cannot play in the bowl game. There is a rule against playing for two football teams in one football calendar year. So no, you cannot do that. They will not be able to play for what is deemed the 2021 season. So they will. Do you guys expect Rattler and Stogner maybe to at least come and watch bowl practice? Is that potential?
We haven't heard anything about that. The only thing that we have been told, Bill, and it's not 100% confirmed, but the plan has seemed to be to get both of those guys in January for what would be the start of winter workouts after the bowl game. So as far as we know, don't know any plans for them to be on campus at any point or what have you. Stogner, of course, did take an official visit to South Carolina and then was visited on the road by the Gamecock staff. Rattler, had a virtual call with members of the Gamecock staff, and then more conversations, of course, after that.
More news breaking as this happens. JJ Enagbare is officially putting out a tweet now stating that he is going to, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, guys, he says, first, I would like to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for, I'm going to have to make this, my eyes are not as good. There we go. Now I got the whole thing right in front of me. He says, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for blessing me with the ability to play the game of football while completing my undergraduate degree. I would like to thank my family and friends who have not only supported me throughout my journey, but made my sacrifices. I am forever grateful to have them as my backbone. I am thankful to Coach Muschamp and his staff for recruiting me, believing in me, and giving me the opportunity to play at South Carolina. I am also grateful for the opportunity to play under Coach Beamer and the new staff. To all the coaches, trainers, and support staff who encouraged me and pushed me throughout the years, I thank you. To my teammates, the brotherhood we have is truly special. Over the years, we became a family. Thanks for the memories and being a part of my journey. Gamecock Nation, thank you for supporting me every season and proving why South Carolina will always be my second home. It is an honor to play in front of the best and most passionate fan base in the nation. With that, my time at South Carolina has come to an end, and I'm declaring for the 2022 NFL Draft forever to thee, JJ Enagbare. If I'm reading this correctly, no bowl game for him. Is that how you guys are reading this?
Yeah.
You guys have probably covered this a lot closer.
I think that's the expectation. And JJ has accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl already, which is awesome. The Reese's Senior Bowl, pretty prestigious, postseason bowl game for guys that are entering the NFL draft. And so he's going to do that. And it was not at practice, the one open practice that we got to see. That could have been because of, commencement and everything like that. But that is the expectation. I think from what my understanding, Bill, I think you're reading that situation correctly.
Yeah. So more news. Go ahead.
It says, I would take the last sentence.
Yeah.
With that, my time at South Carolina has come to an end. That,
well, I think we all assumed his time had definitely come to an end. It was a matter of whether there was one more game remaining in his time or not. And if you read this, it does sound like that he is opting out of the bowl game and will not be part of the South Carolina group. Look, we're not here to discuss the bowl game. We're here to discuss the early signing period and what's going on. Certainly, maybe I can get you guys back in next week or something. We can sit down and all have a roundtable discussion with Patrick as well in regards to the bowl game. But this is certainly for South Carolina. They do need to win this game. This is a game that you'd like to win to continue momentum. I think you have some recruiting momentum at this point. Coming up in about 5 to 10 minutes, we will catch up with Stone Blanton, a guy who provided some of that momentum on Monday afternoon with his commitment. But as Gamecock Russ says on the Gamecock Central live feed, to which you can go to, by the way, go to youtube.com and search Gamecock Central and join us. He says, no Jason Brown, no Zaquandre White, no JJ Ngbare for the bowl game. Yeah, that the line was 7. You expect it to grow a little bit more now with these kind of defections that were integral parts of the football team.
Yeah, JJ was certainly integral to that team, and despite Bill him not having actually looked postseason, I think JJ only had 2.5 sacks this year, I think. But when you look at his impact, his pressure rate, how high he was graded by a service like PFF, for example, huge impact on this defense and their ability to play well in some games this year. Jason Brown, of course, started several games for South Carolina this year. And so that's a loss, and there'll be a change at the quarterback position. Then Zaquandre White, who began the season and ended the season as the starting running back and was playing very, very well down the stretch. There'll be some guys that need to step up in this game, no doubt about it.
Well, again, plenty of time. You can go to GamecockCentral.com and discuss the bowl game in the coming weeks, as we are still 15 days away before we get to that. So there'll be plenty of time to get into that discussion and kind of move from there. But today, focusing on the early signing period in South Carolina, continuing to roll through. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to catch up with Stone Blanton, and we'll talk with him. We also want to get into a little bit of the secondary and the linebackers. Donovan Westmoreland's another guy I want to get you guys' opinion on. Certainly how you see Stone Blanton fitting in, but also Patrick and I discussed this morning, how early could you expect an impact from Stone Blanton? Not an early enrollee. So we'll catch up with Stone Blanton next. We'll talk with Chris and Wes. You're listening to Gamecock Central and 107.5 The Game's Early Signing Day Takeover, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet here on 107.5 The Game.
Our early signing day special, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet.
Sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet. If you want to weigh in, 803-404-6100. We are efforting Gamecock linebacker Signee, Stone Blanton, and Chris West. Let's get into the linebackers here as we await the phone call from Mr. Blanton. I think this is an interesting one because it is a highly thought of recruit. It is a guy that can make an impact, but when you don't enroll early, it makes it more difficult. That's part of it, and I think that you just have to temper expectations for a freshman season where you say, "Oh, we get this guy in, we're ready to go." What is fair early on for him? Because South Carolina needs help at linebacker. They needed help at linebacker big time. They need a guy with this kind of athleticism, this kind of mentality to come in. What is fair for an expectation?
Well, you're right. I mean, it puts you behind if you can't enroll in January. But here's the thing about Stone. He's very intelligent. He's a hard worker. And I was talking to him, I guess that was yesterday a little bit, and we can certainly ask him about it too, just about Clayton White's scheme and how he's going to be used. He'll be used as a Mike linebacker. There's a good bit on this scheme in the linebacker in terms of setting guys and getting everything set up for the defense, making calls. But he said that there's actually a decent amount of carryover schematically with what they do in high school and with Clayton White's scheme. So he seems like he's already pretty comfortable with it. He's got a great relationship with Clayton White, who did a good job of, teaching the linebackers and integrating the guys into the new scheme. A guy like Brad Johnson, who didn't have any actual linebacker experience prior to this year. So they're probably going to get a couple guys back, but I think it's certainly fair to expect Stone to be able to come in and possibly play some as a freshman.
Well, let's hear from him himself. Out to the phone lines we go. Stone Blanton joining us now, an official Gamecock signee. And Stone, we had Braden Davis on earlier, and I asked it. It's a little bit different now. You are a signee. The whole process, everything that you've been dealing with for about 24 months now, finally comes to a close. How does it feel this morning to wrap this thing up, to know your exact destination, and to move on to the next phase of your life?
It's really amazing. I'm super excited that, I was able to get this process and I was blessed enough to have, schools want me, and I'm super excited for the next chapter with South Carolina and ready to get there.
He is Stone Blanton joining us this morning. Walk us through the last several months for you watching South Carolina, really building that relationship with Clayton White, watching the defense this past year, and even taking the visits that you've taken over the last several months, and what it was about South Carolina that when you made your commitment on Monday pushed you toward coming to Columbia.
Yeah, walk you through it a little bit. Me and Coach White started a relationship about a year ago when he offered me, and then, it carried over where I trusted him enough to take an official visit, and that's where it kind of sparked, some real connections and great relationships started from there. And we just built it on after that, and then I was able to come to the first game, and we built a good relationship over the season, and then I trust him enough to go back for the Clemson game, and then from there it was game on. So he came, did a little home visit, and with the home visit, they blew me away. It was fantastic. I couldn't have been more thankful for them for doing that. And then we had a 3-hour Zoom. Had a 3-hour Zoom on Saturday, the day I committed, and I asked him about every question in the book that I could think of, and I was super, super grateful for him for doing that with me, and it allowed me to trust him even more. So I couldn't be more thankful for him.
Stone, this is Wes Mitchell from Gamecock Central. Appreciate you doing this, man, and obviously congrats on the big day. So you sort of were just talking about it, but when did you truly know? Obviously, I guess if you had a 3-hour Zoom on that Saturday, it sounds like you were kind of asking all your final questions. When did you internally sort of think, oh, this might be the place for me? And then when internally did that sort of flip to this is the place for me?
I really knew it was the place for me when after kind of the home visits. They were phenomenal to me. I couldn't be more thankful for them, and I knew it was kind of a place for me. After the home visits, like I said, then that Zoom call we had on Saturday, I was kind of bought in to what they were saying, and Coach Beamer coming to my school and talking to me, and he has connections to Mississippi, so that made me feel even more comfortable with my decision. So I felt like this place was is going to be home to me for the next 4 years for sure. So
He is Stone Blanton. Stone, I've read that you are a workout warrior. That weights is your big. You're not working out right now because you sound out of breath. You're not in the weight room right now, just getting so fired up after signing, right? You're at least taking one day off, right?
I'm actually on the golf course right now.
Oh my goodness! Somebody on the live stream just said, "Is he playing golf?" It said, "Was that a golf?" So you're on the. This is the way you said. What is the handicap then?
I shoot about 75 to 80.
Okay. Tell him to wait on you. You got an interview in your future home. Just hold up. Just enjoy your day. Go ahead, Chris.
How much, Shane Beamer fancies himself a bit of a golfer too. Is there going to be a player coach challenge there? Did y'all talk about golf any?
Oh, no doubt. Coach White and I have definitely bonded over the fact that we both play golf, and we call it the little golf bug. We got it bad right now. So
who is the better? Sorry, Stone. Who is the better golfer, you or Coach White? Do you think?
I've never seen him play, but he says he doesn't shoot. He doesn't shoot as low. So
okay. All right. Well, a few more minutes with Stone Blanton this morning. We're interrupting his golf outing to celebrate signing today. Going back, and Chris kind of talked about it, Stone. You mentioned, I guess, in an interview with Chris that some of what you've done in high school is similar to what Clayton White wants you to do when you arrive, and then maybe that'll speed up your process. What are those things? What are they talking to you specifically about being able to come in and help with?
Yeah, they think I can come in and play and make an impact to the team, and that's what I want to do. And that's always been my goal is coming as a freshman and be able to help the team any way I can. Whether that's special teams or whatever. I want to be on the field. That's a goal I have for myself. And Coach White says it's completely possible and doable. So I'm super excited to get there and get to work with the guys and be able to make an impact.
Stone, Chris Clark here again. A two-part question here for you. What can Gamecock fans expect to see from you on the field in terms of your play style at the middle linebacker position? And then after that, tell us a little bit about juggling, the potential of playing two sports at the next level, playing baseball, playing football for the Gamecocks.
Yeah. Do you say how hard is it to juggle two sports? Is that
just trying to your plans to juggle both sports, and then what Gamecock fans can expect from you on the field and on the baseball diamond as well. Kind of break down your skill set for us.
Yeah. What you can expect on the football field is a hard hitter. And then for the baseball side of things, same thing. I'm a hard hitter there too. So it's kind of I go for a lot of home runs. And then for football, I go for a lot of kill shots. So that's kind of the way I play.
He's Stone Blanton, currently on the golf course. If we talk to the South Carolina coaches about golf now, there is I don't know how that season necessarily interferes with football and with baseball, but I would assume maybe we can fit you in just out there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Why not? He's Stone Blanton. Before we let you go, just recruiting. You always hear crazy stories. You go on these visits. The visits are wild and entertaining. Do you have a story? You don't have to name the particular school because you went on multiple official visits, but a story from recruiting that just made you realize this is a once-in-a-lifetime type deal that not everybody gets to experience.
Well, I feel like not everybody gets to experience, the interactions with the head coaches. I feel like that was definitely my favorite part, and having the in-home visits. That kind of blows the mind of a young player, young athlete, to my knowledge. So that's been the most exciting part, was just the relationships that I've built. I don't really have any crazy stories for you, sadly, but just the interactions with the head coaches, in my house, and then also going to see them and meeting with them in my office, in their offices is really cool to kind of get that experience.
All right, two more before I let you go. Who do you fancy your golf game after? Who are we trying to emulate today? Are you a McElroy? Are you a Justin Thomas? Who are we today?
I'm more of a DeChambeau. That's kind of my
okay. Well, you said you go for the big shots. I can understand that. And then Teddy D on our Cool Care Heating and Air text line. You don't understand this just yet. This is a thing for me. The white belt. Do you wear a white belt on the golf course? It is Chris is making a fake. You do know about that. It's a white belt. It's the golfing. That's the golfing attire.
No, I don't usually wear a whole lot of white belts. I am going to be on the golf team in MRA this year though, so hopefully we can get a state championship there.
Go for it, big guy. All right, well, get back to playing with your friends and your buddies and whomever today. We apologize for interrupting you. Congratulations.
No.
Okay. Always fun to talk to you guys, man. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing you in Columbia here soon.
I appreciate you having me. It's been amazing. I thank you so much for having me on today.
Take care, Stone.
Thanks, Stone. Have a good one, man.
Hit him well. Tweet out what you score. That way we can keep up with it. He is Stone Blanton joining us live from a golf course somewhere.
That was a first.
I did an interview one time on a golf course, and I thought I could walk. Like, I was like, well, I'll skip the hole. I told the people I was playing, I was like, go ahead. I was at some radio station somewhere, it wasn't like that. It was talking about South Carolina football or whatever, the upcoming game. I was like, y'all go ahead and walk, or y'all go ahead and go. I'll walk the fairway. I'll catch up with you on the next tee. The walking and trying to do an interview and I feel like I'm in better shape than I was 5 years ago. And it was difficult. And somebody asked me, like, what, are you on a treadmill or what are you doing? I was like, no, I'm on like the second hole and I'm trying to walk right now and talk. And it didn't go well at all. So I can understand. And probably his playing partners are staring at him like, dude, we'd like to tee off or we'd like to hit the putt. You think you can? So glad he could make time for us today. Glad he could make time for us. Back to what I was bringing up with you guys, because Brad Johnson, likely, I think, coming back. Sherrod Greene, I think, going to come back. And then you've got a guy that I assume we're going to look at, who was highly thought of, Mo Kaba, who's played some, but it's probably time. It's his time to step up and shine. How does Stone Blanton impact this position next year, you think?
I think he plays, y'all. I mean, I think certainly early on when you have a number of seniors, a number of guys that have played, Sherrod Greene, you really hope for that kid's sake that he can get back and get healthy and have the senior year that we all think that he can have. Brad Johnson, I think, still has some upside at that position when you consider the fact that, like Chris said earlier, he just hasn't played a ton of linebacker in his career. He was more of an edge guy early in his career. So there are some guys he's going to have to pass. It's not going to be like he just shows up and, hey, man, you're the starter. But you talk about the intelligence, the leadership ability. Y'all just heard him. There is sort of a quiet confidence. I don't even know if quiet's the word, but it's not a cockiness, but there is sort of an understated confidence that Stone Blanton just sort of puts out. So I tend to think this guy is the middle linebacker of the future for South Carolina. How quickly he becomes that guy, obviously tons of other variables. How healthy is he? How does everybody else perform? How quickly does he pick up the defense? He strikes me as a guy who's going to pick it up pretty quickly, just hearing him talk football. And I think the staff is very excited about him.
Chris, where do you see guys last year, Debo Williams in particular, and Bam Martin-Scott? I don't think we saw – I expected a lot more from Debo Williams this year, but Brad Johnson and Damani Staley performed well. The South Carolina struggled to stop the running game, but Debo Williams is a guy that I really liked in the spring game. He's still just a young kid. He transferred in as a freshman. And then Bam Martin-Scott, the junior college player last year, I don't think we saw him this year. We mentioned Mo Kaba. Where do you see those three guys kind of impacting? Because as Wes just said, Stone Blanton's going to have to climb over some of these guys to find playing time.
Well, I think the key there is developing more depth at linebacker. I remember talking to Clayton White at one of the media opportunities, preseason media day, and kind of asking him about the depth. He mentioned you got to have at least three guys going into the year, and ideally you want to have at least five. And so I don't really know that they found five this year, right? Their depth really took a hit when Sherrod Greene went down on the second play of the second game against Georgia. And now Damani Staley goes from your top backup who can play any of the linebacker spots to your starter, and a guy that in several games, Bill played every single snap. Brad Johnson normally was not far behind in terms of the number of snaps he was playing. So really you had two guys. Kaba was sometimes that third guy. Debo, I think, was just maybe not ready this year. Physically, he's impressive, but again, he was a true freshman, so still time for him to learn. Darrell Ware, was in there this year as well. And that'll be another guy to look for. Stone, I think, is going to have certainly a chance, to be in that mix too. Mo Kaba, that I mentioned earlier, you would think that he's got a chance to either be a starter or to be a really, really quality backup. But I think it's more about developing depth And I think that's where having a guy that can play early in Stone Blanton, can come in.
Can we talk real quick about the job that Clayton White did here to sort of
Yeah.
this was kind of a one-man battle, I feel like, for Clayton White. South Carolina has not landed guys from Mississippi a ton that were like targeted by Ole Miss, targeted by Mississippi State. And, Stone, to his credit, had an open mind with the process, even though he was committed to Mississippi State for baseball. He let South Carolina recruit him. He let Ole Miss recruit him for a while, let Texas A&M recruit him. So he had an open mind. But I think the job Clayton White did just building, Stone talked about it, that early trust factor, taking the official visit. We felt like after the official visit, this was back in the summer, South Carolina was going to get Stone Blanton. Then, he did visit early in the season for the Eastern Illinois game on an unofficial, but then it just maybe some of it was our perceptions, maybe some of it was our reporting, our content, but it just felt quiet for a while there publicly. Like we didn't hear much about Stone Blanton in South Carolina for a stretch there. Then boom, what happens? He pops up for the Clemson game. To me, it sounds like South Carolina knocked it out of the park in the in-home and knocked it out of the park in this Zoom call that we actually, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
A 3-hour Zoom call on Saturday. I would have, I wonder what he had, like what was talked about for 3 hours after all. But that tells you a little bit, tells me he's a detail-oriented person.
Very.
And that this was a thorough process.
Well,
for
and
Stone Blanton.
a little bit more that Stone didn't say that he said in our interview with him on Gamecock Central that went up, I think, yesterday. He actually, I asked him when he told the coaching staff, and it was that Saturday night. So looks like he got finished with that Zoom call, felt really comfortable, said he called Clayton White at about 10:30 Eastern time, and then called Shane Beamer, and gave him the news. So definitely they did a great job there, just kind of stay in the course, Wes, and ended up landing him. And I think it was just the right fit. I think South Carolina checked the boxes that he wanted checked, and same, for the Gamecock staff and Stone Blanton.
Another guy that could factor into the linebacking rotation right now is Donovan Westmoreland, who has signed his letter of intent. He is good to go. Guys, this is a guy that South Carolina flipped from Georgia early on in the process, is a guy that I think has some differing heights and weights according to the different websites. But how do y'all see Donovan Westmoreland fitting into this? Whether is he more of an edge guy? Is he more that could be the outside linebacker guy?
Yeah, they've been listing him and recruiting him as an edge. Now, I heard some feedback that it was possible that he could get a look as a true linebacker as well. A lot of times, you slot a guy for a position. That's how you recruit him. That's how you envision him playing. But then it's always just kind of a projection. You get the guy in, you see exactly what he looks like as a college player. How much bigger does he get? How much faster does he get? How strong is the person? What are their instincts like playing in space when you're talking about if they're going to be a linebacker or an edge guy? He's long been listed, I would say, as being a future edge player at South Carolina. I don't know if that completely takes away the possibility, though, of him being a true linebacker either.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that started his high school career as a safety and then has played multiple other positions, multiple linebacker spots in college or in high school, I'm sorry. And also, he even played defensive tackle for his high school, as an undersized DT, just as kind of because he's such a good pass rusher. So he's done a lot of different things, and he does project more of an edge. His latest conversations with the Gamecock staff came on his official visit, which was this last weekend before signing day. And he kind of said, hey, I'm an edge guy, but they might want to move me around some. And he even brought up the example of how the Cowboys use Micah Parsons, at the pro level as an example of that.
Another guy to kind of throw into the mix because he will lead us to our next discussion, but Nick Emenwari, Irmo High School product, is a guy 6'3", 210 pounds, could project at linebacker, could project at safety, could project at nickel cover. Let's discuss him for just a second. A tackling machine there, a guy that South Carolina again got on early. And I think fits the mold of the linebackers you have to have today against these air raid defenses. A guy who can get sideline to sideline, can match up. He got some height at 6'3", can match up with some tight ends, but it can also maybe go and match up with some wide receivers. Wes, how do you see Nick Emmanwori fitting into the South Carolina defense?
Well, first of all, I'm proud of your progression as in
5.5
saying his
hours,
name
baby. 5.5
correctly.
hours. I was going to get somebody's name right.
Very, very impressive, man. But first of all, I just realized we should have had Irmo coach Aaron Brand on the show because having him talk about Nick Emmanwori, I know, Chris, you did an interview with him. I talked to Coach Brand actually right before Nick committed as well. And this guy is incredibly high on Nick's upside. And the coaches there at Irmo, Coach Brand and Coach Reynolds, defensive coordinator there, do a great job. And I think if you look at Emmanwori's measurables, it matches up with like a guy going into the NFL combine.
Mhm.
And, Chris, we were talking, you were talking earlier about the camps that South Carolina has every summer. High school kids come in. They essentially are going through NFL combine style testing. And when Nick was there, we quickly had a few people whisper, "Hey, watch this guy." And it was because his numbers at the time, the vertical, the 40-yard dash, shuttle, at his size was just off the charts. So then you back that up. A lot of times we'll say things like, well, hey, this guy's a great athlete, high upside, but he's got a ways to go as a player. Well, you look at the production this year on the football field, it was all there. This guy was a tackling machine this season. So I think the biggest question is not will Nick Emmanwori have an impact in South Carolina. I think he absolutely will. The question is, where exactly do you slot him as a player? Did a little bit of everything at Irmo going into the season. They were even saying, how exactly is it best to use this guy? And, could he be that big nickel like you were talking about? Yes, potentially. Could he be a true linebacker? Yes, potentially. Could you even line him if he gets big enough? He could line him up off the edge and pass rush him on passing situations. So it's going to be, I think there's going to be some fun arguments in the ops building among position coaches about where he ends up. Now, I will say this: Clayton White gets to call the defenses, so it's his final decision. So maybe he ends up in the linebackers room.
Yeah.
We will continue talking about that. We'll get into the secondary, and I want to get into the defensive line. We're closing out here on this program, but we'll be here all day. There is a developing story, a massive developing story right now taking place on National Signing Day. The Rivals' #1 player in the country, Travis Hunter, running back, correct?
Receiver and DB, really.
Okay, just everywhere. He does everything.
Yeah.
He just plays everywhere. Pete Thamel 5 minutes ago has tweeted out he was committed to Florida State. He was committed to Florida State, or he is committed to Florida State. I'm trying to figure out where we stand with this. He's the Rivals' #1 overall recruit. According to Pete Thamel, Florida State has been informed that Travis Hunter is heading to Jackson State to play for Deion Sanders and Jackson State. The #1 overall player in the country appears, according now to several national media outlets, appears to be decommitting from Florida State and instead will be heading to play for Deion Sanders at Jackson State. We'll kind of keep you updated on that story here over the next 20 minutes. That would definitely, guys, I couldn't even start to explain where that would go into the list of signing day surprises that we have seen, but we will try and look at this. Obviously not South Carolina and or Clemson related news, but this is the #1 rated prospect nationally, not by position, not by state. The overall #1 player, Travis Hunter, right now is a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors that he will decommit from Florida State and head to play for Deion Sanders in Jackson State. So, early signing day 2021. It is producing some fireworks. We've got another about 15 minutes with you here on the Gamecock Central 107.5 The Game takeover of early signing day. And we will get into the secondary and the defensive line when we return. You're listening to Bill Gunter, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark. coming to a close here on the Gamecock Central 107.5 The Game Signing Day Takeover, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet. Again, Pearson and Preston will continue on. Wes and Chris will be throughout the day hopping on to give takes on what is happening here as we get more information on South Carolina's recruiting class and so forth and so on. Shane Beamer, 4 o'clock today. You'll hear that right here on 107.5 The Game. At 5 o'clock, our own Heath Klein will have a one-on-one sit-down with Shane Beamer to review. Again, a lot of stuff for Shane Beamer to get into today, guys. Spencer Rattler, Austin Stogner, you can get into that. The news of Jason Brown. If you're just tuning in, Jason Brown now in the transfer portal. JJ Inigbare basically foregoing the bowl game. So that press conference could take a little while this afternoon. So settle in at 4 o'clock here and listen to 107.5 The Game. And you can catch all of Shane Beamer here. And then after that, you'll be able to hear the one and only Heath Klein conduct an interview like only he can do with Shane Beamer. Guys, secondary. This secondary for South Carolina this year, it was expected to be a rough go of it. You lose Jamie Robinson. You lose Johnny Dixon. You lose Israel McQuamu. You lose J.C. Horn. Oh, no, they're in a lot of trouble. And then to be quite honest, if there was a position group that outperformed what we expected, it would have been Torian Gray's group in the secondary. Jalen Foster, an All-American, an incredible story there. I thought Darius Rush played really well. But now you bring in an influx. Emery Floyd and Keenan Nelson Jr., the two that stand out to me. But Anthony Rose also, by the way, Anthony Rose now officially in the boat here as he has sent in his letter of intent. And that's another interesting guy, given his height, his length, and his weight. Chris, you look at the secondary class and what instantly jumps out to you?
Well, I think that influx of talent, starting with those three guys you mentioned, there are others, Kwan Banks, who can be, a nickel or a corner type. And then Peyton Williams, who's a guy who's a safety that I think could, if he wanted to, even grow into a linebacker, but probably slotted as a safety. Those other three guys that you mentioned, Bill, probably corners, although they could play other positions. And just an interesting skill set across the board. Different type guys. Emery Floyd really fast. Nelson has coverage ability. Could probably be a safety or a nickel if you wanted him to. Rose is really, really interesting because Wes and I saw this guy in camp. He was very impressive. Ball skills. He had multiple interceptions in the one-on-ones that we saw. He ran a 40-yard dash in the 4.4 range and didn't even run it with the correct technique. So this is a guy that's got a lot of speed, length, and physicality.
I'll hop in and say there's a lot of talent in this group. Torian Gray gets an influx. Like he said, Emery Floyd is the speedster of the entire group, and I think is more of maybe an upside guy as far as, gonna have to develop a little bit. I think Keenan Nelson, Chris, is maybe the furthest along as far as like maybe an instant impact. We'll see where he slots. Is he a nickel? Is he a corner? Is he a safety? I'm not sure. The guy, in my opinion, though, that is the dude is Anthony Rose. He's listed as a safety on Rivals. I disagree. I don't care if he's 6'2", 6'3". I think my man can be a true cover corner. He's that athletic. This is one of those guys that can jump out of the gym. I was wowed when we saw him in person. There's so many kids. There's so many DBs that get recruited from the state of Florida, from South Florida. Sometimes they all kind of run together. When I saw him in person, I was like, this guy is a different level of athlete. And if he comes in and works, that's always the if. But from an athletic standpoint, this kid is an NFL talent.
South Carolina picks up a commitment last night. DeQuandre DQ Smith, quarterback, Spring Valley, not going to play quarterback here. As a matter of fact, will not sign today, according to you guys. Will wait until August, enroll, and will count toward next class. But a plus athlete, but he's going to have to learn the position. Your take on the addition here, I guess this comes in because of the Javonte McClendon news, the ability to take another safety, maybe, but the fact he doesn't count to this class, who knows there. But you guys take on a local guy, Spring Valley standout here, DQ Smith now, who will come in, will enroll. Again, you're not going to see his letter of intent today, correct?
Yeah, correct. Not signing today. The expectation right now is he'll enroll in the summer. I guess there's a possibility maybe he signs in February, but our expectation is that he just enrolls. You take that number. Take that number, push it forward to 23. It's a very resourceful take for South Carolina, in my opinion. I don't know if DQ is an instant impact because he's going to be transitioning, but as he makes that move from quarterback to safety, I do think it is a low risk, high upside decision to take him. And as I defer to Chris here, he talked to Spring Valley's Robin Bacon. Robin Bacon has seen, I mean, how long has Robin Bacon been a head coach? This guy has seen some players over the years. And Chris, I don't believe we ended up putting that up yet. Fans can read more from Coach Bacon later on this week, maybe even tomorrow morning or so. But what did Coach Bacon have to say about him? I think when you think of taking a quarterback and moving him to DB, you're talking about most of the time a bright kid, a leadership type kid, has a strong understanding of offenses, thus probably has a strong understanding of defensive coverages as well.
Yeah, I think you nailed that part of it. And the thing that stood out is he raved about his leadership ability and how, hey, if your best player is also your best leader, that's a good thing. And so South Carolina and Smith, they'd kept in contact for quite a while. When it came time to decide, hey, am I going to stick with quarterback in college or am I going to transition to DB? That was the biggest part of the decision he had to make. And so my understanding, Wes, is he had a long conversation with Clayton White, who you mentioned earlier, and then became comfortable with the notion of staying home, changing sides of the ball, and doing that, making maybe kind of a business decision of playing in the SEC and transitioning. And another interesting thing that Bacon said stood out was, this is a guy that's really physical at quarterback. He doesn't slide. That's what he said. He said maybe he runs out of bounds if he has the chance. Definitely doesn't slide. Torian Gray actually scouted one of his games this year where DQ Smith scored 4 touchdowns, including one where he ran somebody over on the goal line. And so the staff saw that and thinks that it can translate to DB.
Let's move quickly. Defensive line class. And I wish we had more time to kind of get into this. It's an interesting class. Jimmy Lindsey's first class here. Certainly there is a guy, James Pierce, who is still out there as an edge guy. But you look across the board at this class, and your take, we'll start with you, Chris, your take on what South Carolina is adding here to the defensive line under Jimmy Lindsey.
Well, and like you said, still a target out there with Pierce, but you look at, Jamal Weiss, I think is a really interesting prospect from down in South Florida who has some height. He has some physicality and athleticism that's kind of an interesting blend. Demetrius Watson, an in-state guy from Charleston, had a really good senior year, played in the North-South game, I think had a couple tackles for loss in that postseason bowl. So he's a really, I think, an intriguing in-state guy, the type of guy that early on in the Shane Beamer tenure, again, one of those guys that you don't want to let get out of state if you think he can really help. Felix Hickson out of Georgia was a target that Jimmy Lindsey already had a relationship with, dating from his time at Illinois. So another guy that they've added there. We mentioned, Brian Thomas as an edge guy, Donovan Westmoreland. So they're adding some numbers, to this class on the defensive line, and some guys that, while they may not come in right away and play a lot, these are guys that you can bring into the program and develop.
Shall we reassess real quick exactly to give everybody an idea of what they're waiting on right now?
Yeah, quick. 2 things. Let me ask y'all 2 things. Tell everybody what we're waiting on as we move to the afternoon, but also real quick, if you don't mind, the guys that are early enrollees, if you have that in front of you. If not, give me where we stand here as we head toward noon, and if one of y'all can, if you got an idea of early enrollees, Wes, I think you've got in front of you. Keep looking at Chris. Where do we stand? Where do we stand right now?
I've got that answer for you.
Okay,
the early enrollees is maybe a little more difficult. I don't know if Chris knows either. Maybe he does. Waiting on Jamal Weiss, I believe. Kylie Horton, Keenan Nelson, Demetrius Watson, DeAndre Martin, and Xavier Short, actually.
Yeah.
So Xavier was doing a ceremony at 11:30.
Okay.
Our own Kendall Smith is actually at that signing ceremony. So we'll have some content from there. And yeah, that's pretty much what's left as far as who is signing today.
And we know that, to go back to the question about January enrollees, a few guys that we're kind of waiting on to confirm, but a couple guys that we do know, Braden Davis, who we talked to earlier, is going to be an early enrollee for January, and Landon Sampson, who, of course, we expect to play a potentially a significant role this year. That's a couple guys to watch for on the early enrollment front.
It'll certainly be something we'll keep an eye on. Make sure you head over to GamecockCentral.com. Check out GarnetTrust.com regarding name, image, likeness, something that Gamecock Central is working very hard with, and you need to check out as well. You guys will be around the rest of the day, or is it? It's not nap time. It's not. I've been here before. It's nap time for me. I'm done. You boys got a long, long day ahead of you. We got plenty more rolling on this afternoon. Pearson and Preston are up next. Jay Phillips and Tommy Moody 1 to 4, and Heath Klein this afternoon. Again, you'll be able to hear Shane Beamer right here on 107.5 The Game. And oh boy, so much for Shane to talk about today. A lot of good things happening for the University of South Carolina today. A reason for people to celebrate and enjoy what is turning out to be a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Wes, Chris, it's been kind of enjoyable to do this. I like this better than riding in the car with you and stopping at some random restaurant in the middle of nowhere.
You don't like eating with us?
We went to some weird places, man.
Yeah, that's true.
We went to
That's true.
again.
One day we can go do that.
We'll
You can
go
come
do that.
along for old time's sake.
I do miss those days. There were some stories that we don't have time to repeat here that you would hear from recruits that were always very interesting. But always enjoyed working with you guys. Appreciate you guys coming in today. Always appreciate you guys being a part here of 107.5 The Game. Make sure you get over to GamecockCentral.com and always follow them on their live stream. Go to youtube.com, search Gamecock Central, and you can subscribe there. They do a lot of great stuff there as well. Keep Mike Uva in check. He eats a lot of food, actually. Keep that guy in check there.
Tough job.
Up next, Pearson Fowler, Preston Thorne. You've been listening to the Gamecock Central's early signing day takeover, along with 107.5 The Game, sponsored by Herndon Chevrolet. We are not done for the day. We will keep rolling along. Pearson and Preston up next on 107.5.